Good morning, Unleashed Lund loyalists. Thanks for tuning in live each weekday at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. Remember, please like and subscribe and listen where you get your podcasts. Be on the lookout for Lund loyalists perks by joining the club. And if you really want your comments read during the show, you can use supers and stickers. Now, as close to on time as he gets, here's Johnny.
On the thing there, on the stage there, I was scrambling with so many different things. I did not get music for you, so I feel like I got to get music because that's just, we got to do the show the right way. So let's get a little music in here. There we go. Yeah, just messing with so many different things, and I'm only late because I'm not gonna blame you, but there's so much going on today. Let me show you the show cover today. Very proud of the show cover. Got to do things in the correct order. Let's see what we got. There we go. Blew it, back up, sorry, and maybe. Sounds like a Johnny Carson episode. What is... So in the left-hand corner, you see Steph there, as he often is, towel overhead. Blew it. They blew a 17-point halftime lead. Did the Warriors backed up, as in backup plan? That is Pete Carroll right there. He has been the 49ers defensive coordinator, and he was successful, but could he be it again? I did do a story of the day yesterday again on Robert Saleh, so I will explain that. Sorry, well, kind of. Draymond was sorry in Draymond's kind of way. He's apologized before, but Draymond Green he does struggle with sorry, but on his podcast with one Baron Davis, he did kind of sort of apologize to Jordan Poole, so we'll get into that. And then Barry Bonds, he's as surprised as I am. He could actually be a Hall of Famer in 2026. So we have a ton of stuff to go over today. Thank you for joining us. I will acknowledge everybody in just one moment. If you are new to the program, please hit us up in the comment section so I can acknowledge you, as the community is growing every single day, which is awesome. This is episode 39, John Lund Unleashed, johnlundunleashed.com. Please subscribe on the YouTube channel. That would be absolutely tremendous, because then you can get your alerts going and when stuff comes out. Like yesterday, we had tons of different stuff after the show, and plus I'm doing this thing called Story of the Day, which I will explain. And also we're doing that at johnlundunleashed.com, putting a blog with it. So all the normal things that we got to promote to start the show. But as you see there, if you're new or if you're not, on that right side is a chalkboard, and it says right there, episode 39, as you can clearly read. Sacramento beats Golden State last night, 123-117. We did a bit of a post-game show last night, so we'll go over some of that ground again. Third quarter in the second half, especially that third quarter when they had 8 turnovers and DeMar DeRozan went crazy for 19 of his 32. Draymond is kind of sorry. Trent Baalke, and if that changes the situation with Robert Saleh, I did something on that yesterday. Pete Carroll, the backup plan, possibly. Certainly better than Brandon Staley. And if you were at the show yesterday, John Middlecoff absolutely eviscerated Staley and said, as he's heard around the league, just like I have, that Brandon Staley, a lot of players would not want Brandon Staley as the defensive coordinator. Patrick Mahomes kind of sort of owns up to flopping on a Kansas City radio station yesterday. We'll play that for you. Bonds in 26, as I showed you, Barry looked very surprised. I just got to play this video for you because I just don't understand some people's rationale, and it really shows you why Bonds, Clemens, others who should be in the Hall of Fame are not. It's honestly laughable. Maybe you don't care about Hall of Fame stuff. Hockey fight. I know you've seen hockey fights before, but there was one last night that just kind of caught my eye, and I want to ask you about it. Random stuff which happens throughout the show, all you do, and I know you do this on purpose to me, and I love it. But essentially what happens is, I'm talking and blabbing, and then I'll look down at the comment section a lot of times, and then I'll read something, and it'll send me off into a tangent. We go on to tangents. We try to stay on track on this whole thing, but part of the fun of the show, I think, is random stuff. And then we do have a sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol today. Just one story that I've had for a couple of days. We just haven't had a chance to get to it because we've had so many things. And just like yesterday with Middlecoff popping into the middle of the show at about 10 o'clock, and I knew he was coming, but we got a couple of things out to people, and we could have some drop-ins today, so we'll see what happens. One being Kevin O'Connor, who is a writer for Yahoo, and says that it's time for the Warriors to blow it all up. And so we're trying to work out times. If not today, then tomorrow. But he may pop in. And what's funny about the program that I use, right in front of me, there's all these different things I'm going to use on the show today. And then there's an area where there's kind of a green room, for the lack of a better term, and I can see someone, and all of a sudden they pop in and they're backstage. I'm like, hey, and then we pivot and we do that kind of stuff. So we got some calls out as well. So we may be pivoting to a guest just like we did yesterday. So thank you for letting us get through that. It was only 5 minutes of that kind of stuff. So just to set up the show, thank you very much to everybody who is already in the room. I'll start at the top because people come early and they're like, bro, come on, you're saying 8, and you're saying 8:05, and you're saying 8:10. I just knew I had a bunch of stuff I had to get into the system today so I could impress you with all sorts of stuff, actually, so we could entertain each other. Thanks to Hurley Bird. Jeff is always here, nice and early. Wes is here. Hello, Skills Report. My guy is here. Lynn Bird is here. Hurley Bird. Vernon, good to see you this morning. Joy P is always my favorite. I don't know why when I say Joy P the first time, I always screwed up to J. Hello, Walter. Hello, Mofo. My friend Walter is here. You should check out his podcast, which is incredible. Let's see. Wes is here today. Who else is here today? Steve is one of my favorites around. Scott is here. Frisco native 915 sports fan who was in the post game last night. Good to see you, Scott. Gizmo, Ernesto Ron. Great to see you, my friend. Let's see. Who else do we have today? Oh, yeah, 44. It was chilly. I got to be honest with you. I have maybe the best cup of coffee I've had in a long time. I'll tell you a coffee story in a second. Whether you want to hear it or not is debatable. But Douglas Paul Hurd, I don't know if I've seen you before, but it is great to have you in here. And again, if you have not been in, I'd love to acknowledge you. So just hit us up with, hey, good morning. I'm new here. 5950, good to see you as well. Nathan, my good friend Nathan, rough loss last night. Absolutely. So let's get into all these things. We got a ton of stuff. And here's the thing, too. We are kind of democratic around here. I mean, I kind of run the show a little bit, but if you want to move to something else, if something's not great, please give me feedback. I'm different than a lot of shows in that I want to know what you think. I want to know how to make the show better. I do want to make it about you because at the end of the day, we're growing this community. It's a heck of a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying doing this. It's really a breath of fresh air compared to what I was doing. And so I'm just really enjoying this stuff. Let me check one thing real quick because they're telling me okay, now it's going. My X wasn't going. And so we're on X, we're on YouTube, and we were on Instagram as well. So you can take us anywhere. Remember, we also hit a button and you can go to any, let me just reset my X right here to make sure that we are live on X. Looks like we're not. So it looks like something's going on with X today, but we'll survive. All right. Anyway, we don't need to reset anything. We're not going to start again today because it's just the way it is. We're not going to have any X today, but we are on, I see that we are on Instagram. I see that we are on YouTube. We'll have to work on X tomorrow or at some point. So there you go. All right, let's get into everything. Good morning. I think X is having an issue, no, Instagram is looking good. Okay. All right. So just a problem on X today. No big deal. It doesn't mean anything to you and I. All right, let's start everything up. Let me start with this. I'm going to move my background a little bit differently. I'm going to do what I did in the post game last night, which is I had a post-game background that was a little bit different that showed the story from last night, and then we'll switch back to the normal chalkboard. But this is what I did last night. That doesn't look too good because I moved over. Let me move myself over here a little bit so you can see everything that I said. Let me make myself there we go. All right, let's save that, and that looks better. All right, as you can see, we'll just start talking about the game, and then we'll move to other things. But this is what I did in the post-game chalkboard last night. The Warriors lose to the Kings, 123-117. They led at half by 17. Third quarter, Sacramento 37-20, as you can see there. 8 Golden State third quarter turnovers. DeMar DeRozan got anywhere he wanted, just so the Warriors know he's in the mid-range. 19 of his 32 were in the third quarter. Steph Curry, as I've told you, in an unpopular fashion, and I'm not here to hate. I love Steph Curry, but he's not going to carry teams anymore, especially with the guys that were out last night. So he goes 1 of 5 for 2 points in the second half because, as he said, post-game, junk defenses, whatever you want to call it, the Kings just went, look who's on the court right now. There's number 30, and then there's pretty much nobody else. And so somebody else is going to have to beat us, and nobody could. Give Wiggins credit. Wiggins was good last night. Guy Santos sighting last night as well. Look at those starters. Sacramento 105, the Warriors 64. That's not good. That kind of just Emphasizes what I just said there. Second half, 75-52. And now Golden State, the Warriors, are 21-22 and 11th in the Western Conference. So take a look at that real quick. Those are the numbers from last night. We can pop up a box score if you want, but all of that, you probably know most of that, but I thought I would just show you. So there you go. That's what happened with the Warriors last night. Now, in terms of where this leaves the Warriors, no different than anywhere else. I acknowledge the injuries. Let me pop them up on the screen because as I was watching last night, they popped these up on the screen, and I get it. It's part of the thing, but kind of like with the season with the 49ers, we can't just sit here and go injuries. I get it. It's part of the deal. Gary Payton, Kyle Anderson, Draymond Green's out for a while. Kuminga, Kerr said yesterday he's not close. I don't know what is going on with Bajemski. He's out. As you see the quote there from NBC Sports Bay Area on Kuminga, quote, he's nowhere close to being ready, unquote. So this is going to be a while, and these things are going to linger up until the trade deadline. It looks like it, to me at least, that's what is going to be the case, that this is going to be a thing where trade deadline wise, this is what the Warriors are going to look like. So like I said, if Kevin O'Connor joins us from Yahoo today, then we'll get into that conversation. I'm not an advocate of right now blowing it up. I'm not an advocate of saying, let's just blow this thing up. Let's trade Steph. Let's trade Draymond. Let's do these things. These are things that have to be carefully curated in the offseason. As I've told you before, there's marketing involved, ticket sales involved, spins involved, not having people cancel their season tickets. It's not as simple as, okay, and people forget this, there's a financial element. There's all these different things. So I guess, could you trade Draymond Green right now? You could, but the dynamics of the situation is that's Steph Curry's biggest ally on the Warriors. And if you trade Draymond Green, then you're probably going to have an unhappy Steph Curry. And so you don't want to have an unhappy Steph Curry. And when and if you have to trade Steph Curry in the offseason, which I think it's barreling towards that, to be honest, then you want it to be as amicable a parting as you possibly can. And we know this from a personal standpoint. Let's throw sports out for a second. It's very hard to have an amicable parting. In fact, I'm trying to think in my life if I've had any. Like a lot of people are really good, or not really good. It's always an awkward situation, but I don't think I'm friends with any exes or friends, or, it's just, there's a reason why you're not together, and it's okay. And everybody takes it personally, and it's really hard not to, especially when it's as public as a breakup as what the Warriors would be. So yeah, it's going to be really difficult for that kind of thing to happen. So in the offseason, I think Steph will come back and be a Warrior, but the way that it's looking right now is Steph has said that he doesn't want to be on a mediocre basketball team, and the Warriors are exactly that, as they drop now a game below 500. They're 11th place in the Western Conference. And I know that you know this. I'm just kind of reiterating some of these things because it seems like we talk about it every single day, whether it's Kuminga or a trade or any of these kind of things. And I just don't think that that's the case, especially given that, and people don't talk about this a lot, but given the fact that there's 10 teams that, at least you're a play-in. So there's the same normal 8 playoff teams that actually make it, but there's 10 teams, and then there's teams below that think they're in the playoff chase. So it's kind of like baseball where, they expand the playoffs, and you come up on the trade deadline on August 1st, and you say to yourself, well, maybe I'm in it, maybe I'm not. And there's dynamics around it, and the GM's maybe in his last year, and he's like, well, I'm going to still go for it. And so the unintended residual effects of more teams in the playoffs means more teams that think they're in it. And so therefore they don't want to disappoint their fan base or their owner or anything like that. And they don't want to trade. So fewer teams trade in every single sport. And as I've told you before, when they do trade said person, it's either that they're a problem like Jimmy Butler, or they're too old, or they're too expensive, or there's not really that perfect guy. It's really difficult anymore to get that perfect guy. So they're limited in what they can do in the trade market. They can't sign anybody outright unless they were to unload a bunch of players. So free agency in the offseason isn't in the offing for the Warriors. What's the other way that you can build your team? Draft. As I've said many times, they're in the middle, which is the worst place to be. So either be really bad, be really good. Take a page out of and I said this in the postgame last night, take a page out of Danny Ainge's book when he was with the Celtics, get a bunch of picks, hope that you're a destination at some point, take a step back for a couple of years, which I know Joe Lacob doesn't want to do, but it's the inevitable process when it comes to sports, professional sports, in any sport. I don't care. They've been at the top of the mountain or near that place for a really, really long time. But the realization is going to happen that they're going to, at some point, and I believe this offseason is that point, they're going to have to offload. Now, let me go back to Draymond Green for just a second. Then I'm going to get to Draymond Green kind of sort of being sorry to Jordan Poole, which is kind of an interesting thing, and I want to get your opinion on it. Draymond Green, to me, now I'd have to go to Steph Curry, and he wouldn't be very happy. But as I look at it right now, Draymond Green, when healthy, and he'll be healthy, is playing some pretty good basketball. And he's largely, in his world, been away from the officials. He's been really good. And if I'm a team like Detroit, which hasn't been good for a long time and is his home and needs some veteran leadership, if I'm San Antonio, which they're fighting with right now, so I wouldn't love trading Draymond to San Antonio, but they do have young assets and they do have picks. And Greg Popovich, I'm sure, would love to work with Draymond Green and Chris Paul and have a veteran presence around a guy like Victor Wembanyama and all the young players that San Antonio has. I could go on and mention a few other teams as well. You know, Oklahoma City could use it to put them over. Now, again, Oklahoma City and Sam Presti have kind of done this thing where they're going to take their time and they're going to build this thing, and they got a lot of young players and picks, so maybe not. But I do believe that when you have so many picks, it's like, you know, you don't want to have all of them. You saw the trade between Phoenix and Utah yesterday so that they could get more picks so that they could trade those to Miami to get Jimmy Butler, and everyone's scratching their head going, why would you trade 3 first-round picks for 1 first-round picks? Because the picks that Utah has, all those first-round picks, are largely because of the trade, or a couple of trades, but one is with Cleveland where they traded and Donovan Mitchell, and those picks are going to be at the end of the round. So they have like 3 picks and swaps and all those kind of things with Cleveland. Well, the way Cleveland looks, those are going to be at the end of the first round. Utah doesn't want that. And so what Utah did was they got an unprotected from Phoenix, I think in 2031 or something like that. And their thought is it's going to be unprotected. Phoenix possibly is going to be very good because you look at their veterans at that point, would they be blowing it up? And Utah's gambling that they can get a lottery pick, you know, or a top 5 pick or something, because it's completely unprotected for a bunch of picks that are going to be near the end of the first round. People were texting me and hit me up on Twitter and stuff going, this doesn't make any sense. NBA drafting is different than NFL drafting. The NFL, you got 7 rounds and you can pick a Brock Purdy in the 7th round. End of the first round is a complete crapshoot, which for every Jordan Poole you get, who's that one dude that the Warriors got that just couldn't shoot? I can't remember. Well, there's a lot of those guys, but there was one guy in particular that was like, oh my God. So anyway, you don't often get guys near the end of the first round. You get a Festus Ezeli every once in a while. You get a Draymond Green in the 2nd round. You get a Gilbert Arenas in the 2nd round. I understand all those things, but generally speaking, end of the first round is basically drinking 8 beers, putting on a blindfold and throwing it at the dartboard. You have no idea what you're getting. So anyway, that's the latest as far as the Warriors go. If you want to get into the Warriors, we can. I'm gonna pivot to Draymond here in a second. I mean, would you trade Draymond this year? I don't know. How upset would you be if they traded Steph in the offseason, but it meant that you were going in the other direction? And I have a philosophy. That one dude that couldn't shoot. You know what? That's unfair to you because there's a million of them at the end of the first round. Let me just go real quick back because now it's going to drive me crazy. Warriors draft history. You know what I'm talking about. It was in the midst of the run, and they picked this dude, and I think they traded him like Minnesota or something like that. And he was just awful. And it was like he couldn't. I mean, it was right at the start of the revolution where everybody was shooting the ball like crazy, and it was like, why did you pick this dude? They've had a lot of those guys lately. No. Jacob Evans. Remember Jacob Evans? This is 2018. That's the dude I was thinking about. Remember Jacob Evans out of Cincinnati? The biggest bricklayer in the history. Let me see what his shooting percentage was. He's already out of the league. Field goal percentage of 33.7 and 31.5 from 3. Just total bricklayer. That was the guy. Sorry. Thank you, Pat H. See, Pat H knew. Not Jordan Bell, but good call, skills report. Jordan Bell's best attribute was being a great guy at the parade. Like Nick Young was great at the parade. They were terrible players, but that one dude that couldn't shoot. Good morning, Enrique. Enrique Luna is here as well. Good to see you. Daryl, good to see you, man. Really good to see you. Anyway, morning, boys. There is DM2026, who was in the postgame show last night. Really appreciate that as well. Yeah, Jacob Evans. Anyway, there's your Warriors thought. Good morning, sports girl for life. Really, really, really good to see you. So, yeah, look, I'm with you, man. Dales, I'm with you. Yawn, GM John. I get it. Yeah. Hi, Jordan Bell. Hi. But anyway, some people knew I was talking about Jacob Evans. Thank you very much. Everybody knew that kind of a thing. Good morning to everybody. So anyway, there is your Warriors report. If you want to get more into the Warriors, and if you're new to the show too, let me just say this. Philosophically, like 95.7 has to talk about the Warriors. KNBR to a certain extent talks about the Warriors. I'll lead with them just because what happened last night, but it doesn't mean we need to spend more than a few minutes or 5 minutes on them. I mean, I'm not anti-Warriors in any way, shape, or form, but to go over the same ground every single day. Hey, they're injured. They blew a second half lead. They were up 17. The third quarter, the fourth quarter, this. I mean, all that kind of stuff. It just, I don't want to bore you. And I look at everything that's going on today between the Draymond stuff and Bulky, Saleh, and Pete Carroll and Mahomes and Bonds and the hockey fight. And John Middlecoff was on yesterday and pissed a bunch of people off, which is kind of funny. And we're going to play that for you. And so, I mean, there's just a ton going on today, which is, as I said, I put the show cover together today and I was like, my God, what a great day. But I felt compelled to start with the Warriors, but we don't have to stay there. Like I said, it's a democratic show. Danny Golding TV, it's good to see you. He became a YouTube member for like $5 a month. I'm going to do all these special things. In fact, I'm starting today, my afternoon, when I send out the story of the day. And so what I do is we do the 8 a.m. show like we normally do. 8 a.m. Pacific, we go as long as we need to go. And as long as you're compelled and paying attention, then we'll do that. And then what I've decided to do, I used to do a thing called 3 minutes on. And as I said yesterday in the story of the day, I can't clear my throat in 3 minutes, as you well know. And so essentially what I'm doing is I'm doing a thing beyond like the shorts and the things that we send out. And if there's breaking news or whatever, then we do a thing called the story of the day that usually is like 8 to 10 minutes. I also put it on johnlundunleashed.com and write a blog around it every day. So we're a little bit different than other shows because we go through a bunch of different stuff that are going on in the Bay Area and nationally. And we don't really stick to just one topic. So I thought, you know what? There is a big story of the day. So what we'll do is we'll do that separately in like 10 minutes. And so I send that out to members only. And then, we go from there. And then the next day I'll make it public. So there are different things that I'm going to be doing. We're going to be doing chats and all those kind of things. So believe me, if you're going to give me $5, $6 a month, then I'm going to make sure that it is worth your while. Believe me. Thank you, Jeff, as well. Same thing. You became a YouTube member. Thank you so much, you guys. It really makes my day that you guys would take the time to do that. So thank you very much. Much appreciated. Let me see here. I don't know that I've seen you before, Alejandro. So can we have a Bash Trent Bulky segment, please? See, like I said, we're democratic. We are absolutely democratic, and we will bash Trent Bulky. Give me one more second. I just want to stay a little bit on track, and then we'll move over to football. Let me just do one thing before that because I have Draymond sorry, and you can kind of see there. I pushed it over too far on the chalkboard. You can kind of see a question mark there. So let me just finish this, and because I think this is interesting, and then we'll get to Bulky and Saleh and Pete Carroll and Mahomes, and because there's some really good NFL stuff, and it is Thursday, so we're getting close to the championship days. And I think Mahomes' audio is very much worth waiting for as well. So let me do this. All right, this the other day. Let me just backtrack for 1 second, all right? So here is Jordan Poole. And Jordan Poole, after the game, he had 38, this 3, 4, 5 days ago, whatever it's been since Washington was in town. And he said, I like those guys. I like all those guys over there. And then he caught himself and said, I like most of those guys over there. And then Draymond Green responds on his podcast with Baron Davis yesterday. But let me just remind you of something. Let's go back in time for a moment. And this is what Jordan Poole said in the Washington locker room after the game at Chase the other night.
Shout out to the fans. Saw a lot of 3 jerseys out there, a lot of JP3 jerseys, which is always really cool, and always get a lot of love. Spent some good quality time here, and it's dope to see it.
Hang on a minute. He didn't. I must not have gotten the beginning.
From the fans, and then after the game from your former teammates and coaches.
Yeah, I love those guys over there. I love most of those guys over there.
That's the part I wanted. I love those guys over there. I love most of those guys over there. So then, of course, Draymond Green, when he had an opportunity. Now, again, maybe this is me, and this is why I love this forum so much, is because I don't want to unnecessarily bash Draymond Green. I just simply want to have you either say, yeah, that's what's happening, Lund, or maybe it's not happening. But let me play Draymond Green. He's not great at apologizing. Some people aren't. If you're part of the older demographic, remember that the Happy Days episode where the Fonz was like, I'm sick. He couldn't say sorry. There's a lot of people like that. It behooves you, by the way, if you're a younger part of our demographic here, to just say sorry to your significant other. Believe me, from a guy who's slept on many couches, been divorced, made a lot of mistakes, I can just tell you as I'm not an expert in too many areas, but I can tell you that just being able to say sorry, which is a mature thing to do, sorry. It's just easier. It's just easier than being like, I'm going to sleep on the couch, man. I'm going to stick to my guns on this whole thing. Just sorry. And then you're cool. I mean, Joy, can you back me up? Sports girl for life. Can you back me up? Like if as a guy, you just say, or significant other, however your situation is, and you just say sorry, it just, and you're genuine about it. It works out a lot better. And it's just a lot easier. So I think that Draymond thinks he's sorry. And then kind of as this whole thing goes on and he's egged on a little bit by Baron Davis here, the blame starts to shift back to Jordan Poole. And I think this is the first time we actually hear why Draymond punched Jordan Poole. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it sounds like to me he comes out and says why he punched him. And I don't know if this was public knowledge. Maybe it was. So anyway, those are the things to look for when you're listening and watching this. And then give me your opinion on this. Is this a true apology from Draymond?
Like, we're supposed to move on, man. I really am sorry.
Right.
Like, it was that statement was kind of like it was kind of like it was looking for some sympathy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I kind of keep wanting to make me out to be the bad guy. Move on, bro. Like, it is what it is. I'm sorry. Like, I shouldn't have punched him. But it happened. Like, let's move on, man. I even apologized to his parents because I got his dad popped off one time on the internet, and I went back at him because it was just like, bro, why you popping off? And I actually didn't like myself for it because I wasn't even on that. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I kind of let him get me off my square a little bit because I've said what I said about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I kind of go
It's
back.
over, bro.
Yeah, bro.
It's over.
I be kind of going back and forth with this on like, I'll be kind of in between on certain days like, yo, I know I was wrong, but you can't call a man a B word and push him and not get hit either. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I kind
That's
of
a cold word.
you know what I'm saying? I kind of sit in both of those spaces sometimes. And like the reality is, the answer is probably somewhere in the middle, right? Like, I shouldn't have knocked him out like that. If anything, I should have hemmed him up. Kind of was just a natural reaction. So the reality is, like, I probably should have hemmed him up or something like that.
Yeah.
And so the answer probably in the middle.
Fact,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, after the fact. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do after the fact, right?
Facts.
You can think about and say what you did wrong, but in that moment, like, man, we done seen plenty of teammates square off and fight. So you done seen fights in the league. It's a whole YouTube highlight of just people, getting down and thumping, and it happens.
It does.
It happens. It happens in practice when you're competitive. You have that competitive spirit. But at this point, I really am sorry is another public apology.
Okay. First of all, Baron Davis is high as hell. Okay. That's one. He's just kind of rambling on, and it's like, is he going to stop at any point? What is he saying? He's talking in circles. And so I don't know if Draymond, look, again, I'm not judging. I don't care. Do whatever you want. But just saying, first of all, let's establish Baron is high. And then second of all, it's like, so he starts with an apology. And then I don't know if it was Draymond who started kind of hemming and hawing back and forth. Like, I'm not really sorry, and I've apologized enough times. And we need to stop talking about this and everything like that. And then Baron starts to kind of say, well, it's almost like it's justified that you punch the guy. And then, like I said, I hadn't heard, and maybe you had, and maybe this is public, and maybe I just missed it. It's very possible. But Draymond says, you can't call a man the B word and not get punched in the face. Okay. That's your rule. That's fine. Whatever. But it starts with an apology. Then it kind of goes, I've apologized to you enough. There's middle ground here. Accept the apology. Then they start blaming Jordan Poole, like, hey, man, let it go. It's in the past, all this kind of stuff. And here's the thing. It's not in the past. It's going to live forever because You traded this guy, and the only reason, I don't care if the Warriors ever say we signed him to that contract and we shouldn't have, or whatever excuse they want to come up with, they weren't better. The moment they traded Jordan Poole, they weren't better. Getting Chris Paul was not better. Losing Chris Paul for nothing was not better. Talking about now how you don't want to mortgage your future when you've already gone down that road and taken a kid who was, 23, 24 years old, whether people want to admit it or not, he helped them win the championship in 2022. At this point, with Steph Curry playing about 30 minutes a night, he could take the ball handling duties off. I'm not saying he's Steph Curry, and at times, if you wanted to criticize him, and it's absolutely justified, he plays out of control. He thinks sometimes he's Steph Curry. He shoots from 10 feet beyond the line. He absolutely drives you crazy. But the other night when he scored 38 with Washington and was pretty efficient doing it, I think it was 8 of 15 from 3. It was 5 of his first 6. The Warriors could use that guy. The Warriors are looking for that guy, and he's 25 years old. So, it's the remnants remain because they had to trade a guy who could help them in the future, that whole 2 timeline thing that Joe Lacob just swears by but doesn't really acknowledge all the time. So they traded this guy because you couldn't, as a team leader, patch it up between Jordan Poole. You couldn't do, and you still can't, based on that apology, not apology, you still can't say sorry and then actually mean it, because it was sorry, but he's taking this thing too long. Sorry, but you can't call a man a bitch. Sorry, but it's just all of a sudden, and then Barron starts talking him into it. I love Baron Davis. I'm not ripping anybody. All I ever do on this show is I try to just objectively look at things. So I don't have a bias against Draymond Green. I certainly don't have a bias against Baron Davis. I'm just, and I don't have an unnecessary love for Jordan Poole. I'm just looking at the situation saying, and I don't disagree with those guys. I've covered tons of teams over 25 years. It used to be in the NBA, they actually used to let you into the practices. When I was with the Utah Jazz and Jerry Sloan, he would let you into practice. And the thing that he used to say is, if anything gets outside of these walls, that's it, we're done. So in the league, they actually used to do that. And they had shoot-arounds every day, and you had a lot of access to the team, because of social media and the things that get out and the things that get leaked. They just don't let you do anymore, but they used to. And so, yeah, did I see pushing and shoving? And no, yeah, but I didn't see haymakers, knockouts. And this was in the day that the league was like that. And remember, this was like Karl Malone and Antoine Carr and Greg Oden. These are big guys. And there was a lot of physicality in the league. And it's a long way away from Kermit Washington and Rudy John Jonovich. It's not, you don't see that anymore. And Tree Rollins and Danny Ainge, and go on down the line. Guys don't square off anymore, which, by the way, I'm going to play a hockey fight later. That's awesome. So anyway, look, I'm not taking sides on anything. I'm just simply saying that if you could just, Draymond Green, and let's go back to the conversation we were having before we played the video, just say sorry, man. And that's it. There is no but. Sorry, but you're hanging on to this too long. Sorry, but you can't call me that. Sorry, but it's just you're either sorry or you're not, man. I don't hate Draymond Green. I don't dislike Draymond Green. This is not an anti-Draymond Green. I wouldn't even call this a rant, just discussion. It's just, dude, you punched a guy in the face. I'm sorry, you can't. You just can't. And then you're supposed to be this great team leader, and yet you drove away Kevin Durant. Now maybe he leaves anyway because he's a strange dude, but you didn't help. So Kevin Durant leaves. Jordan Poole, I guess, is forced to leave because the organization decides that the two of you can't coexist. And you bring in Chris Paul. Can we be honest about it now? Chris Paul is one of the most hated Warrior opponents in a long time. Nobody likes Chris Paul. So they bring in Chris Paul for a year and everybody tries to play nice. But the reality is nobody likes Chris Paul. Nobody liked that trade. The Warriors wouldn't have made that trade if it wasn't for you. Look, I always acknowledge that Draymond Green has had a major hand in a lot of championships for the Warriors. And I don't know how many they win without him. There is a debate of, look, if you had a really good power forward who could do those things like Horace Grant did for the Bulls back in the day, maybe that kind of a guy would have won just as many championships as Draymond Green. I'm not trying to lessen what he's done. He initiates the offense. He's a hell of a defender, especially for his size. He's going to the Hall of Fame. I'm not saying any of those things are untrue, but what I am saying is when you lose Jordan Poole, when you lost last season and Steph Curry's on a ticking time clock because, what did he get suspended? 21 games. When you can't control yourself in the NBA Finals and get booted because LeBron James baits you, and yet somehow you're great friends with LeBron James now, which is completely confusing to me, but whatever. He cost you a championship. You cost him a championship. So I get it. He's helped them win multiple championships, and they probably wouldn't have won those titles without him. He's a unique player, and he's a Hall of Famer, but he's cost them a lot of things too. He's cost them a bit of their future. He cost him a championship when he got tangled up with LeBron James, who knew exactly what he was doing. Many teams target him. So, yeah, he's been a major pain in the ass. So it does go back to the conversation we were having at the beginning of the show, which is, do you trade Draymond Green, or does Steph Curry freak out and say, if you're trading him, you got to trade me? He's a complicated dude. But I'll acknowledge the one side of great, but you also have to acknowledge the other side of like, what in the what? Like, just say sorry to the guy and the thing would be over. Why didn't you do that when he was a teammate? You know, talking about like who's hanging on to it too long. I mean, Baron Davis is the one who brought it up. And what's wrong with him saying, I like most of those guys? Not, or all those guys know most of those guys. Clearly, you guys didn't sit down, and it's kind of like the adult in the room. Jordan Poole's a young guy. I'm not excusing Jordan Poole in this beef, but what I am saying is like, you're the team leader. You're the self-anointed team leader. You're the emotional leader. Why couldn't you have gone out with Jordan Poole at some point, had dinner, and said, dude, genuinely, I'm sorry. You know, that was a bad moment by me. I'm going to back you. You're my guy. Let's squash this beef. I want you on this basketball team. You're the future of this basketball team. You're a hell of a player. I was stupid. I was wrong. You were right. All those easy things that in a relationship, we all have to do. We all have to say, you know what? That was a bad moment. Don't judge me on my worst moment. I won't judge you on your best moment, but don't judge me on my worst moment. And clearly, Draymond Green, who's supposed to be the adult in the room, and I know that's crazy to say, but he is supposed to be the team leader along with Steph Curry. Everybody always says, Steve Kerr says it, Draymond Green, great teammate, great team leader, great this, great that. Well, I know that he didn't help. Whether he cost him or not is debatable, but he didn't help with his beef with Kevin Durant. What if he was still around? They'd probably win more titles. That's the kind of guy they're looking for, is like, who's a clear Batman to Curry's Robin at this point. And last night was another illustration, and then we'll get off this and we'll move to the NFL because there's a ton to get to today, and we're going to be here forever if I keep talking about this. But, you look last night, and Steph's out there essentially by himself. He's 1 for 5 for 2 points in the second half, and you can look at it two ways. Either Steph Curry can't carry a team anymore, which he can to a certain extent, but I've told you, even though it's sacrilege to say, that he can't do what he used to do in his age 37 season, even though he's damn good. But he can't do it alone anymore. And now, Draymond Green is going to get hurt. Like this whole narrative of when the Warriors get healthy. Who says they're going to get healthy? Steph's age 37, Draymond's older, et cetera, down the line. GP2 is always hurt. It's just hurt guys get hurt. So anyway, we can get off it. But I'm just saying. He could have said sorry a long time ago. And we're years past it. And I'm not blaming Jordan Poole because clearly things were not hashed out. And at some point, just like any family, look, family has problems all the time. My family, we're at beef all the time. Not in a major way, but you disagree with the people that you're closest to, and friends, family, whatever. Maybe they let you down sometimes. But if you're truly that way, you've got to be able to be mature enough to say, I was wrong. And right after that happened, he should have taken Jordan Poole out or aside or whatever. And maybe he did, but I doubt it. And just said, look, you're a young guy. I screwed up. That's on me. I'm a team leader. We need you. If he'd have done that, I think Jordan Poole would be a Warrior. Maybe he has. And, I'm not completely saying Jordan Poole's not at fault. But I don't think, like they said, I totally disagree with this point as well. You got called a bitch. That sucks. I get called a lot worse every single day. But the reality is some things you worry about and some things you don't. And, I get it. You're the leader of the team, and it was probably embarrassing in that moment. He probably said other things, but you're the leader of the team. You got to fix it up, man. You got to patch it up, and you got to do it quick because we know the longer something lingers, we know this is not a sports thing. The longer something lingers, the harder it becomes to resolve it or to say sorry or to be the bigger man. Anyway, we're done. What do you think? Give me your thoughts. All right. Somebody before, it was a long time ago because I'm looking at all the Draymond responses, which is absolutely. Nathan says about last night's game, sleep is way more valuable than that fourth quarter. I felt I had to watch it because we did a little bit of a post-game show last night. So anyway, There you go. See, I like this. I love this back. Hi, Scott. They're both wrong. Yeah, to a certain extent, they are. I just think that, clearly there's an issue with Jordan Poole, and we're never probably going to know until they do the last dance of the Warriors, right? And Jordan Poole is going to play the role of like Scottie Pippen, scorned, pissed off guy, probably. But anyway, what else do we have? There you go. There's a good one as well. KD, Clay, Dre, and Steph failed the rookies. Many have left the Warriors, making them weaker. I didn't read that exactly right, but I get your point. Good stuff. Okay. Yeah, and here's a really great Skills, you're the best, man. John is right. People don't know, but John Stockton once beat up Mark Eaton. It never got out. Mark Eaton was so gigantic, but I your point is well taken, which is Stockton was just like, he was the ultimate knee biter, man. That dude, he was tough. He was tough. One quick thing, and then let's move on to NFL talk, because there is so much to do today. So I covered Stockton for a number of years, and this will tell you what kind of guy he was, and it just blew my mind because I was a young reporter. So like I said, I was in 97, they gave me a job to be the opposing locker room guy with a live mic. And so I got lucky in 97, 98. I was doing the Bulls. And then the third year, the guy who was doing the Jazz locker room, which was the more coveted job, even though I liked actually talking to the other players, other teams, Charles Barkley and Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan. And it was just really cool. Teams would come in and I'd have a live mic before and after the game. And, like I told you before, I'd say, I was in what they call Q. So I wasn't going over there. I'm like, hey, I have Tim Duncan here. And I do 2 minutes real quick with Tim Duncan before game. It's just really cool. You had really good access. And like I said, nowadays with the way social media is, it's just not that way. But anyway, long story short was, did I lose my train of thought on this whole thing? I had a great, what was the name that I was telling? And then if you remind me, then I'll be able to tell you the great story, because I did have a really good story. And now I just started talking about the pre stuff, and now I just completely forgot about it. What was I talking about? What was my whole thing? Damn it. That pisses me off when I do that kind of stuff. But I'll like in 2 minutes, I'll be on something else, and then Stockton. Oh, thank you very much, sports fan. So the point is that I had moved over to the Jazz side of things. So I was doing, as I told you, right after the game, I was a guy doing like the 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It's the Jerry Sloan show, and we were live. And then I'd go into the locker room. They'd give me a player of the game, and I'd go to that guy in the locker room, player of the game. We'd do a couple of minutes, and then you talk to all the players. I had interviewed John Stockton no less than, 200 times, player of the game, plus just after the game. He was one of the stars, kind of like Steph or Dre, or, a lot of those guys go out to the podium now. They really didn't do that back in the day, unless like even the coach, the coach comes out to the podium, and numerous players come out to the podium. What they used to do is Jerry Sloan would stand right by the locker room. I would interview Jerry Sloan. Like I said, the Jerry Sloan show, it was sponsored, get 2 or 3 minutes out of him. Then all the reporters and everything would gather around him. Then you'd go in the locker room. So unless it was the playoffs, guys didn't come out to a podium like Steph does now. You went in the locker room. They would tell me who the player of the game was. I'd do 2 minutes with the player of the game, brought to you by blah, blah, blah. And then I would go around and talk to certain players, maybe 2 or 3 players, and then I'd be done for the night. So like I said, whether he was player of the game, which was a lot of the time, or just generally speaking, just talking to Stockton, numerous times I talked to him. So I'm in the airport. I'm in the Delta room or whatever, the thing, waiting for flights and everything. You had a 3-hour layover or whatever, and you'd be in the Delta room. So I'm sitting there having a cocktail or something, and I look over and I see Stockton, and he's with his family and his wife. Clearly they're traveling somewhere, and he was a very private guy. And I thought to myself, do I bother him or not? I'm like, it's not like we're friends, but certainly I almost felt like if I didn't go over to him, it would be kind of a diss, right? So I walk over to him just really, really quickly and say, hey, John, good to see you. And I stick my hand out. Again, we're not friends. We are acquaintances. He would know me. And he just stared straight ahead. I mean, straight ahead, like I wasn't even there. I have my hand out looking like a jackass. And I pull it back, and I kind of tried to get in his vision, because he was staring like this. Just like, I will not acknowledge that you are even standing here. And it's not like there's 1,000 people around. We're in the Delta room. So it's like, it's not like all these NBA fans are around. And I wasn't like, oh my God, it's John Stockton. I was just, hey man, good, real lowbrow. I'm kind of leaning in, and I go, hey John, how's it going? Holding my hand out. And he's just staring straight ahead. And I kind of tried to get in his vision, like, I'm not just some fan here. And man, he didn't nothing. And so I turned and I just walk away. And then I interviewed him another 100 times, and I didn't even ever acknowledge it. Like, hey, I saw you at the Delta room, you ass. Like, what's the problem? Anyway, hopefully that was fairly entertaining. But yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. It's kind of embarrassing. Like, what in the hell, bro? It was. I was like, all right, dude. And like, I don't hold anything against him. It was just, it's just how he was. Certain people they're just not into it. They don't want to talk, and I understand it. And he was on a vacation with his family. He's trying to get away. I understand, but it wasn't like he was going to get bombarded if he acknowledged the fact that it was there. Yeah, the shorts, dude. I mean, I saw him every single day. It was like back in those days. And then thank God for the Fab Four at Michigan, because then everybody just started wearing normal shorts. It was like, you serious, bro? Like him and Hornacek both. I mean, Hornacek maybe not to that point, but the NBA back in those days left very little to the imagination. Let's just put it that way. Anything on that? All right. Oh yeah, Stockton looked like a choir boy. He was far from that. He would set those screens inside him and Hornacek. Man, there was a lot of people that were pissed off because he got those elbows up high on those screens. But anyway, all right, let's move on, because a long time ago, we're 46 minutes into the show, and thank you so much for joining us. John Lund Unleashed. Today, we are on Instagram and YouTube. We had an issue, I guess, connecting with X today, but that is fine. You can always check me out. No, I wasn't wearing camouflage. I was just like, man, what the hell, bro? But anyway, I don't know if that would happen today, because then someone would go out to social media and go, I was just dissed. Like, I didn't, whatever, man. I didn't care. It was a little bit embarrassing, but I was kind of like, all right, that's cool. All right, a lot of stories around the 49ers today. Let's start out with this one. Let me pull up something here. And this is a shameless plug in addition to talking about this. But yesterday, as I told you, I've started to do these things in addition to the show at 8 a.m. Pacific. What we do is, what we're going to do, and what we did yesterday, and what we started with is, I was going to do this thing, and I did a couple of them, called 3 minutes on, which is going to be a quick hitter. You could get today's big story, and it was going to be in 3 minutes. But as you well know, I get distracted quite easily. And so there's no way I was going to do something in 3 minutes. And so what I did is that I've started to do this thing on the blog at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com. You can get all the archives in the show, the podcasts, blogs, all sorts of stuff, the social media all in one place. So rather than tell you to go to 50 places, which I'm on all these different things, but just go to johnlundunleashed.com. So what I do every single day after the show is I come up with the story of the day, which yesterday was more or less likely Saleh gets Jags gig with Balky out. So what you can do is you can go there and watch it. You can go on the YouTube page. I have it there categorized under story of the day, and we'll add those every single day after the show. And I'll exclusively send them out first to members. So if you want to get a membership, those are the kind of things that we'll do. We'll send that out first to members, and then the next day we'll make sure that you get that. So story of the day yesterday was more or less likely, because after we got off the show yesterday, the Jags are such a bad organization. So thank your lucky stars that as much as you may not like what John and Kyle do, or what Steve Kerr does, or Joe Lacob, or whatever, maybe the Giants are kind of similar to the Jags, but no, I'm just kidding. But we don't have the Jags. Shad Khan is their owner. Somehow Trent Baalke survived for 2 weeks, and therefore in the coaching cycle, these coaches are getting hired, interviews are happening, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators. So now the Jags need a GM, a coach, a defensive coordinator, an offensive coordinator, et cetera down the line, and they're way behind. So my thought yesterday was, and you go back and watch this, and I'll just explain this briefly. If you want more detail, then you can go to the story of the day and watch that. And I think it's about 10 minutes long, so it won't take much of your day. But don't go there now, because you'd leave the show. But essentially, people did ask me, well, what do you think? And my first thought was the same thing I said yesterday, which is I don't think Robert Saleh, in his last opportunity to be a head coach, because he'll get the slate fairly wiped clean from New York because they're such a dumpster fire. But essentially in the league, okay, you get two chances. Are you going to go Jets, Jags? Are those going to be your only two chances, Jets, Jags? Because I don't think so. Because we just saw, really, I was going to say an idiot. I mean, that might be too strong of a word, but still, the Jags don't know what they're doing, and their owner doesn't know what he's doing if he's going to wait 2 weeks to fire a guy. Because essentially what happened was Liam Cohen yesterday was the final straw. And look, I could say according to reports, but it's pretty simple. You don't have to really do according to reports. He told the ownership of the Jags, look, man, I'm not working with Trent Baalke. He's a lame duck guy. Plus, he's terrible at his job. I don't want to work with this guy. I don't want this guy to be my direct boss. So they heard that from Ben Johnson, who said thanks, but no thanks to even an interview. They had heard that apparently from Bill Belichick last year, who said, look, I'd consider your job, but I'm not working with or for Trent Baalke. So finally he got the hint that said, this isn't the right guy. So now they got to go and get a GM. So what you care about is, well, does this mean Saleh's more likely to get the job? I wouldn't think, because I would imagine this, and we've heard this, that they may pull it back now, even though Saleh has an interview scheduled for Friday in Jacksonville, that they may pull this thing back because they need to get a general manager. Now, could you hire a coach without a general manager? You could. But I like to equate real life with sports, which isn't always accurate. But let's say that you get hired by a certain guy. This has happened to me before. Let's say you get hired by a certain guy, or a certain person, by a certain person. And you're all excited, and you have a relationship with said person. A lot of times you do, and somebody knows you, and they say you'd be great for this job. So you have a history with that person. It's positive. You're feeling great. Year goes by. All of a sudden, that person says, you know what? I'm moving on. I'm moving on to something else. And then somebody who didn't hire you and has no vested interest in you takes the job directly above you. And you're like, damn, I don't know this guy. So then you got to all over again. You have to, or I don't know this person. So all over again, you have to, kiss their butt and this, that, and the other. And they may have somebody, I don't know, you're a sales manager. They may have somebody from a previous stop that they like better than you, and they are more connected to. And so guess what? New sales manager comes in and you're out. It's not your fault. You haven't really done anything wrong, but you just don't have that connection with the person who hired you. So that's not a sports thing. That's a life thing. And so if I'm Robert Saleh, and again, let's go back to this being, I think, his final chance. Jags are not a great organization. They don't have a great owner. He's kind of harebrained and hair-triggered, I should say. He likes to have a couple of games a year away from his home stadium because he might move the team. They sign bad free agents. They draft poorly. That's just their history. So do you have a trust that he's going to hire a general manager, or the guy who's going to be your direct boss? Is he going to hire a good one? Is he going to hire somebody you know, somebody you've worked with, somebody who likes you? Who knows? So to me, Trent Baalke wasn't a good situation. He was a lame duck and he wasn't great at his job. So I didn't think Robert Saleh would take that job. And I don't think it's better that they're going to start the search all over again and you don't even know who your boss is going to be. Now, if I'm the Jags, kind of like what the Raiders did, I think you hire the general manager first, and then that general manager goes out and finds the coach. That's most times how it works. So I think that, first of all, he may impress them, and it is a second interview, so it does mean that they like him. It's not a Rooney Rule kind of a situation, but I would say that Robert Saleh would not get and would not take the Jaguars job. That's just me. I don't have any insight. I haven't talked to anybody on it. I've talked to a few people about the situation and what Robert might be thinking, and I said this yesterday. I think that Robert Saleh could seriously be considering the Detroit Lions job. Dearborn, Michigan, as I've told you, is a suburb of Detroit. That's where he's from. I don't know his family situation, how much family is there, how much he loves the family that is there, whatever. I don't know any of that. But I do know that if you look at the Lions situation versus the Niners situation, and you completely can disagree with me on this, that's what the show's about, is that if I look at the Lions and I look at the Niners defensively and as a team, you just had their offensive and defensive coordinator get jobs. Aaron Glenn is with the Jets now. Ben Johnson is running the Bears now. And if I'm Robert Saleh, I'm thinking to myself, I did make the jump from the Niners to a head coaching job at one point, but this team was 15-2, regardless of what happened in the playoffs. This is home for me. And I look at the defense, just purely the players on defense, and I think to myself, Aiden Hutchinson's coming back. Defensive line's got some juice to it. The linebackers, Jack Campbell's pretty young. Alex Anzalone isn't bad. They've got a really nice secondary led by Brian Branch. First-round pick, Terrion Arnold. I mean, that's not a bad defense. And it's a young defense, and it'll probably get better. And I could go and be the DC there, and I might be able to get a job from Detroit. Now, I don't know between Saleh and Kyle Shanahan, Saleh and Dan Campbell. I don't know his relationship with Dan Campbell, so that's an interesting one. I also mentioned that Pete Carroll could get the job with the Raiders, and we're going to get into Pete Carroll in just a second because you can see on the chalkboard there. Robert Saleh worked for Pete Carroll. Would he go to the Raiders? Only if he was desperate. They don't have a lot of defense. They have Max Crosby. They have Christian Wilkins, a couple of linebackers that are decent. They still need an overhaul defensively, even though they seem to draft defensive players all the time. So I don't think he would go to Vegas, but if Carroll gets the job, maybe. So that's what. So to me, let me just wrap this up and let's move on to some other NFL stuff. To me, the bigger threat is the Lions than the Jaguars. Could I be wrong? Certainly. Does every guy want to be a head coach? Sure. But he's got, I think, one more chance. Do you want to make that with the Jags and their uncertain situation? I wouldn't think, but I'm not Robert Saleh. So that's the latest on that whole thing. I'll get to Pete Carroll in just a second. I want to go back to the everything and make sure Pete the cheat. Woo! Because we're going to get into Pete right now. Let's see. Jacob says Saleh could look much better having turned the 49ers defense around for 2 seasons than jump into a head coaching job, a better job than the Jaguars. I don't disagree with that at all. Saleh absolutely wants to be a head coach again. But what I'm trying to point out here is that what's the better path? Because if he goes to the Jaguars and it doesn't work, and you can blame the Jaguars because they're a bad organization, but he's going to get a pass for the Jets for the most part. He's not going to be completely unscathed. He's going to have a little mud on him, but he's generally unscathed because Woody Johnson's a joke and Aaron Rodgers is a wacko. And, so I get it. But then you go to another organization, make the decision to go with that organization, and you fail again, then there's stench on you. There's a little bit of stench now, but there's going to be a whole stench in levels of stench when you go to the Jaguars. And even though it may not be your fault, other owners, and this is, it's owner decision, not GM decision. Can we hire this guy? It's going to be, well, he's 0 for 2. And you generally don't get a third shot if you go 0 for 2. It just doesn't work. I mean, if you want to look at like Josh McDaniels, I'll give you a great example. Mike Vrabel just hired him to be the OC with the Patriots again. He got the Denver job. He got the Raiders job in Vegas, and he's not going to get another chance. I mean, that's just it. You're not going to get another chance. You went 0 for 2. You can complain away that it was not your fault both times. I would not agree with that, but I just, generally speaking, you're not going to get more than 2 chances, no matter the organizations that you look at. So rather than going to a situation that's poor, people respect you. You obviously got into the hiring cycle and talked to the Cowboys and talked to the Raiders and a second time with the Jags. So teams like you. But if you go to another team and you fail again, regardless of the circumstances, you're probably not going to get a third opportunity. So you better be careful in what job you take. That's all I'm saying in regards to Robert Saleh. Maybe it's some sort of wishful thinking, but that's where I think. That's what I think. So let's see. There we go. Good morning. Good morning, 49ers Red Zone. Good to see you. I wish we had end zones like that right now. I wish we had the saloon lettering and the red end zones, which would mean we were in the playoffs or the 49ers were in the playoffs, but they are not. And that is too bad. I've always got to acknowledge my friend Joy, and there she is. She's acknowledging people. So that's very good. All right, let's get to Pete Carroll's situation because I did put that on the cover today. There we go. If you're new, if you're coming here, Steph Curry, we have discussed. Pete Carroll, we are going to now. We've already done the Draymond Green, sorry. So blew it. That's last night's game. Backup, as in backup plan, Pete Carroll, maybe. Sorry, we went over. That's Draymond Green, and we'll get to Barry Bonds still and a bunch of other stuff. We are busy today. All right. And plus, we have the Mahomes stuff that you don't want to miss on a radio station in Kansas City yesterday. All right, let's get to Pete Carroll. I'd love to get your thoughts on this because this is purely about you. Pete Carroll is 73 years old. I have a lot of friends up in Seattle, but you know Pete Carroll, and he's ultra positive and all those kind of things. And there's 2 ways to look at Pete Carroll as a defensive coordinator of the 49ers. Actually, there's more than 2 ways. He was here many years ago and he was very successful as a defensive coordinator. He changed the culture up in Seattle, and they had a ton of winning seasons. You can hate him for that, whatever the case may be. But the reality is he does a really good job of it. His message got stale, especially after the not scoring the touchdown, not using Marshawn Lynch against the Patriots. Russell Wilson throws the interception. And from there, as much enthusiasm as Pete Carroll could muster, there was a divide with that team. And finally, by the end, they weren't playing good defense. They had heard every speech Pete had to give, and Pete left the Seahawks. Mike McDonald came into the Seahawks. He's infused some things. They win 10 games. It looks like a pretty good move for Seattle, but Pete wanted to get back into the game. So he talked about the Bears. The Bears end up going with Ben Johnson. I don't think that there's a spot for Pete Carroll. Some have speculated that he could go to the Raiders. Tom Brady is running that show. There's no question about it. I'm sure he has respect for Pete Carroll. I'm sure he knows Pete Carroll. And if you look at coaches in every single league, every single professional league. And what you have is you have coaches who are rebuilders. You have coaches who are culture changers. You have coaches who are let's get you over the top championship types. Not everybody is the same. So what the Raiders need right now, really, Pete Carroll wouldn't be a bad idea because he's a culture changer. And he could change the culture of the Raiders, which has been so bad for so long. So if I was a Raiders fan, I wouldn't be opposed to Pete Carroll, but he's 73 years old. So is Pete Carroll, while being the head coach, going to have somebody waiting in the wings, kind of like Belichick did with a number of different guys who, because Belichick waited for so long or coached for so long, never really came to fruition and they had to leave? But that would kind of be the thought for me, is that Pete Carroll would maybe have a guy, and that's the only reason I would bring up Saleh. Like maybe Saleh would be his DC, but head coach in waiting kind of a thing. But I could see Pete Carroll changing the culture there. I don't think he's going to get the job because I think that the Raiders really need a quarterback, really need an offensive mind. And I think that just given that Tom Brady is in charge there, that I think that Brady is going to go with an offensive mind who can try to be a culture changer, but they're going to get a quarterback in there, whether that's Sam Darnold, somebody else, young guy, trade up, whatever the case may be. And I think that Brady is going to want an offensive mind in there. So I don't think it's going to be Pete Carroll. Could be wrong. Now that leaves Pete Carroll as the backup plan for the 49ers. Now I haven't heard a lot of other names, and I think that's what makes people nervous about this whole situation. I still believe, and I said this 2 days ago, I still believe that Robert Saleh has a 80%. I'm going to go 80%. I think that Robert Saleh still has an 80% chance of being the 49ers defensive coordinator. And as I just told you, I think the Lions are a bigger threat than the Jaguars. Could be wrong, but that's how I see it. So if there's a backup plan, a lot of people, and I popped this up on the screen yesterday, so I won't bore you with it today. But I know that a lot of people do not want the guy, do not want Staley as the backup plan and do not like it at all. John Middlecoff came on the show yesterday from the 3 and Out podcast, my good friend and former NFL scout, and had heard the same things I said. And I didn't say anything to John. I just, exactly what he said is what I heard. Chargers players didn't like him. Joey Bosa certainly didn't like him because he made him go backwards instead of forwards. They ran a 3-4 scheme, and he's like, what in the what? I go forward, not backwards. And I'm sure that Nick Bosa doesn't want to do that as well, and has probably heard from his brother that you don't want this guy. He's seen as arrogant around the league, and he had one good season as a defensive coordinator in which the Rams led the league defensively in points and yards. And as I told you yesterday, had one touchdown pass against them in 2020 with 12 interceptions. He parlays that into a 3-year deal with the Chargers. He goes 24-24 over that time. Alienates a lot of their players, is arrogant. And I told you yesterday, finished in the 20s in points and yards allowed in every single season. And then you put on top of that he had some sort of a role that's not really defined last year for the 2024 49ers, who didn't have a good defense. And Nick Sorensen, as you know, was fired. So one good season in 2020, 4 bad seasons after that as a defensive coordinator, and arrogant, according to a lot of people that John Middlecoff talked to. And I had the same experience in talking to people as well. So would not want him as the defensive coordinator. So then you go to Pete Carroll, which the way that this started, by the way, and this is just how social media works and how reporting works nowadays, is this was just thrown out there. There's a big difference between a report, a connected report, an insider report, a Schefter, a Mayoko, a Barros, et cetera. These great guys and women who cover the 49ers, this was just thrown out there. This wasn't, and remember, agents do this a lot of times. Hey, Pete Carroll be interested in the 49ers job. And then like a wildfire, it goes on and we forget what the origins of the report were. The origins of this report were not anything that were from some insider. So nobody knows if Pete Carroll would even be interested. Because one thing we were talking about with Middlecoff yesterday as well is once you've been the head guy, it's a pretty big ego hit to not be the head guy. Pete Carroll doesn't need money. Pete Carroll isn't going to climb the ladder again. If Pete Carroll takes the DC job of the 49ers for a couple of years, he's going to be 75 and he's going to be out of the coaching cycle. And I think he probably already is, unless the Raiders decide that their culture change demands a guy like Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll would be the head coach. And then there would be some sort of a guy on the staff, person on the staff, who would probably be the head coach in waiting, because he's not going to be around long. He can, jump around and wear his Nike Monarchs and chew gum like a madman, do all that kind of stuff. And he could change a little bit of culture, but he's only going to be there for a couple of years. And he's going to want it to be a part of being in charge and part of the decision-making process and all those kind of things. And so, I don't know if he's a fit, but you care if he's a fit for the 49ers. I will say this. I still think it's going to be Saleh, but I'd rather have Pete Carroll than Staley, because I've heard terrible things about Staley. Having said that, unlike this show, the 49ers are not a democracy, and Kyle Shanahan likes Staley. Brandon Staley. So I don't know, but I'd rather have Pete Carroll. If I were going to put it in order right now of the names that we hear, which aren't necessarily all the names out there, I would go Saleh, Carroll, gap, distance, Brandon Staley. So it's going to be Brandon Staley. Sorry. All right. Before I move off of 49ers and play this Patrick Mahomes audio, which you absolutely positively have to hear, I don't know if we can go a single day without talking about Brock Purdy. Before I get to that, hang on one second. What is the response on Pete Carroll? Nike Monarch Pete. Bubblegum fears Pete Carroll. Hi, Wonder Boy. Hi, Law of Awe. I have not, I don't know that I've seen you before, so it is great to see you. That's a great picture there. I like it. Sorry, little Joey. Pete Carroll just came in and bought our whole supply. Pete don't like children. Let's see. What else? Yeah, I mean, people aren't anti-Pete like they are anti-Brandon Staley. I mean, when I brought up Brandon Staley yesterday and I put that up on the screen of what he struggled with, it's like, ugh, people are vomiting. This is another good question from Law of Awe. I put two of you up there. Do you think the Jags may be waiting for Kellen Moore here, maybe in line for the Cowboys? Like I've told many people, I've got a little bit of insight into the Cowboys, and Kellen Moore and Jerry Jones make a ton of sense. A guy who knows the pecking order, a guy who knows it's Jerry's spotlight, a guy who's not going to fight for said spotlight, an offensive mind, which Jerry likes, a guy that he can control and puppet master. I mean, Kellen Moore makes a ton of sense, was a quarterback, was a player, was a coach, sounds a lot like Jason Garrett to me. And that's who ultimately I think they're going to go with. They're talking to other guys. I will tell you this. I would be surprised if the Cowboys job wasn't the last one open, because Jerry likes that. Jerry likes the spotlight. Oh, I'm the last coach. I'm the last job available. Look at me. Let's talk about me. Is ESPN talking about me? Or the talking head shows talking about me? That's what Jerry likes. And so he'll probably elongate the process longer than anybody else, although Jacksonville might pull back from what I hear and maybe take a little bit longer just because they finally just fired Trent Baalke, which is unbelievable to me. Hello, Rosemary. Dallas is close to signing Schottenheimer. If that's what people are saying this morning, it sounds like the same thing to me. Brian Schottenheimer has been a okay offensive coordinator for a long time. So we'll see. But yeah, Brian Schottenheimer would make sense too. I still think maybe it's going to be Kellen Moore, but here's the thing. Kellen Moore is still coaching in the playoffs, and therefore if Kellen Moore were free, he's the offensive coordinator of the Eagles. If Kellen Moore were free, then I think he'd already be in Dallas. But even though I hear the things that you hear about Schottenheimer, I still think that Jerry is going to wait a while, because Jerry likes being the last guy standing and having the last chair before the music stops. I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong, but that's just my thought. All right, before we get to the Mahomes audio, let me just play this because people were angry with Middlecoff yesterday. We had a great time on the show. He joined us. By the way, I separated that interview out. So if you want to go back and, the show yesterday, you can listen to Story of the Day, you can watch. And then I separated out Middlecoff. So if you want to hear, it's about a 42-minute conversation that we had. We had a lot of fun yesterday, but this is the one that I made a promo out of, and people were not outraged. That's too strong. We're talking about sports here. Nobody's outraged. But here's what he said about Brock Purdy, and then we'll discuss.
Laughs at that, think he's going to get double $100 million. Right now, would Tampa Bay trade Baker Mayfield straight up for Brock Purdy? Not a chance in hell. And listen, Baker's only had the 1 year, but Baker's was the number one pick for a reason. Like, he has an explosive arm. Baker's arm is top 10 arm in the league. Purdy's just is not. And it comes up in some of these big moments. We've seen him play big time defenses. And I get so tired of people like, you nitpick this and this. It's like, I watch top quarterbacks, and I understand the salary cap next year won't impact that much. It still actually has an impact on the Niners, because right now his salary cap hit is like 1. So yeah, even if it is small, that's still 10 or 12 or 15x what it was. It's a very complicated situation. And anyone that argues differently, I just think is an idiot.
That's why I ended it there. Just is an idiot. So we're going to do this until Brock signs a contract. We could go back to what Kyle said. Kyle, absolutely, positively, and you and I talk about this all the time. You got to be able to differentiate between someone who's lying, someone who's not. And he made it pretty clear, did Kyle, and he is the overseer of the quarterback. There's a lot of voices in the room for the 49ers, and in a lot of issues, Kyle will, I'm not going to say defer, because he doesn't defer, because he is the final decision maker. And if anybody tells you any different, they're telling you wrong. So John is part of it. There's a number of different voices in that room. But when it comes to the quarterback, good or bad, it's Kyle Shanahan. So you can blame him 99.9% for Trey Lance. That was his call. You can, I guess, give him accolades for Brock Purdy, although Brock Purdy was the 262nd pick. So there was a lot of people that passed on him. But they, early on, when Brock was in training camp, I can tell you as a fact that they identified him. In fact, Mike Shanahan actually identified him and said, "This is your best quarterback in camp." And Jimmy was there, and Trey was there. And within the first week, Mike Shanahan was standing on the sidelines, because we were all standing there, and said, "That's your guy." So he identified him pretty quickly, and Kyle was on board pretty quickly. And his, even though, Brock didn't have the year, as we well know, we don't need to go over that ground again. Brock didn't have the kind of year that a lot of people thought Brock could have. It gives you a bit of a dilemma in this contract, but he's getting signed by the 49ers. It's just going to happen. It's just a matter of not if, but when. And that's the big thing to me is, can you get him signed early so then he can work with everybody? He can be at all the OTAs. He can be a leader. We don't have to sit here every single day and talk about it. And believe me, because he's the latest quarterback, not the greatest, but the latest, ESPN's going to talk about it. Social media is going to talk about it, because we love talking about quarterback contracts. That's just what it is. I'm not a Brock hater, and nor is Middlecoff, because I know him and we've talked about it off the air a ton of times. We're not. All he is simply saying is that if you give him this money and he's what he was in his third year versus his first 2 years, then that could be a problem with the 49ers, because we've said this. The reason why I think Brock tried to do too much last year was simply that he didn't have the weapons around him. So if you're going to pay $55 or $60 million per year for a quarterback, you would like him to be able to elevate your offense without all of the weapons. Brock's not going to do that. He's going to need the weapons around him. So you're going to have to continue to spend the money around him. Whereas in a situation with Josh Allen, you can lose Stephon Diggs and somehow be better. If you're Kansas City, you can lose Tyreek Hill and somehow be better. So that's just kind of, you can be Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews can stink, and you don't have the greatest receivers, and Flowers can be out, and yet the Ravens can still be competent offensively. There's a handful of those guys. In fact, not a handful. There's the three that I just mentioned, and then there's a gap, and beauty becomes eye of the beholder. So that's where Brock is. You can put him 10th, you can put him 15th, you can put him on your list, you can put him on Mount Rushmore. I don't care. It's just, can he not live up to the money so much, but not damage you like Dak Prescott damages the Cowboys, because you got to have a lot around him. And once you start paying that money, and as Middlecoff said right there, it's not going to be the first year, but when you go from $1 million to 15, $1 million to 20, and then by the third year, 22 or 23, 25, and then by the fourth year, 74, 75, woof, you better have things in place. That's all. So what else do we have here? All right. So that's the latest on Brock. I've wanted to play this all day long. I'm very excited that we are here. Anything else on Brock before I move to Mahomes? Because this is interesting stuff to me. We did this the other day. By the way, if I have not welcomed you to the show today, thank you very much for joining us. We are about an hour 13 into the Thursday conversation on John Lund Unleashed. Please make sure that you subscribe on YouTube, that you follow us on X at John Lund Radio. Instagram, we are live. We hit the button for the podcast right after the show, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your favorite podcast. And as I say, we've made it very simple on you to follow along. All you have to do is go to johnlundunleashed.com, and we archive everything there, podcasts, YouTube shows, blogs. And so right after the show, beyond the podcast, hitting the button on that, I do the story of the day. So we're on that. And I do about 10 minutes, do a separate one, post that, and then write a blog around that. So there are lots of ways you can get a hold of the show, and we always appreciate you being a part of the show. So thank you very much for tuning in. 8 a.m. weekdays when news breaks, and we do the story of the day, and we post a bunch of shorts and all that kind of stuff. So again, it doesn't happen without you, and I really appreciate you guys coming in. You make it a lot of fun every single day. All right, let's go to Patrick Mahomes here. And we had the conversation the other day, and I went on a rant about it, and I don't think anybody likes it. Maybe if you're a Chiefs fan, you do. But the other day against the Texans, last weekend against the Texans, where the first one, Will Anderson hits him, It's not a personal foul, 15 yards. They get a field goal out of that drive. He slides under the two defenders for the Texans after doing a little bit of a dance, and then slides under each. They hit each other's helmets. Somehow it's a 15-yard penalty. He's past the line of scrimmage. Patrick Mahomes is 6'3", 225, and slides at the last minute. He knows exactly what he's doing. And I'm not a Mahomes hater, man. He's going to the Hall of Fame. I have a lot of respect for Mahomes and what he does. But what I'm saying is he doesn't need to do those kind of things. And I'm all for protecting the quarterback, the leading men in the movie. I've talked about this, blah, blah, blah. But officials are now just getting kind of like the NBA when LeBron used to flop all the time, and they've kind of changed the rules in the NBA, floppity, flop, flop. And they're just throwing the 15-yarders. They scored a touchdown on that drive, so that's 10 points that the officials gifted the Chiefs. And then on the third one, and Mahomes did apologize for that, on the third one, Mahomes kind of danced around, hung around the sideline, and then he flopped out of bounds, and the Chiefs fans went crazy. And for once, the Zebras didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. So that's kind of a lot of people complaining about the Chiefs and getting calls and all these kind of things. So then a radio station in Kansas City, 96.5 in Kansas City, has Patrick Mahomes on weekly. And here's a couple of minutes from that conversation. Mahomes talking about officials, criticism, calls, all those kind of things. So let's take a listen to Kermit the Frog here, Kermit the Frog, and we'll discuss you and I right afterwards. Here's Patrick Mahomes yesterday.
I mean, obviously, I've been on both sides of it as far as how I felt the calls were made. But at the end of the day, man, those guys are doing their best to make the best calls and keep it to where the players are making the plays in the game, and that's what decides the outcome. And obviously, there was a call here or there that people didn't agree with, but at the same time, I think there was a lot of other plays that really decided the outcome of that football game.
I feel like this is one of the times where some of the, whether it's media, whether it's some of the opposing fans, some of that is directed towards you and potentially drawing roughing the passer calls. What do you make of that conversation about the way you play the game and potentially trying to draw roughing the passer calls?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the only one I felt like I probably did too much was the one on the sideline where I didn't get a flag and the ref saw it and didn't throw a flag, and I understood it immediately and know that I probably shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, the one that everybody's talking about where I fell down, it's like I was just trying to get out of the way of getting smoked by the defensive lineman running. So I'll try to keep doing that and not take those hits because that's the smart way to stay in the football game.
Right now, we're talking to the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, here for a couple of more minutes.
All right, there you go. Sorry, I should have cut that a little bit earlier, but you get the gist. There's a couple of things, and then I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Chat line is wide open. If you're watching the show later, at John Lund Radio, let me know your opinion on that because I'm on Twitter/X, all the different places, so however you want to have your opinion be known. Absolutely great. If you're watching later, you can hit us up here, and I always try to get back to the comments. So one part of what Patrick Mahomes said, I agree with, maybe much to your chagrin, and then a lot of it I disagree with. So at least he acknowledges the fact that that play along the sidelines, he probably shouldn't have messed with, because to be honest, if I was an official in that situation, and again, I'm not a Patrick Mahomes hater. I respect Patrick Mahomes. How can you not? He's one of those generational players in which, as he's kicking your team's ass, as we know from a 49ers perspective, but you can't help but respect it. Maybe I'm wrong in that. Maybe you think I'm nuts. Maybe you think I'm crazy. But when you see greatness, and it's and as rare as greatness, real greatness can be, then you have to respect it. I mean, I don't want to get into how he's broken our hearts a million times, but he does get the call. So he does at least acknowledge the fact that the one along the sidelines, which was absolutely ridiculous, and I honestly think it should go 15 yards against, or if it's not 15 yards against, then let one of those linebackers give him a forearm shiver to the head and see if he's going to do that anymore, because I think it's ridiculous. The second one led to a touchdown in which he slid under the two Texans defenders after dancing around, and he's past the line of scrimmage, so he's a runner, and he's 6'3", 225. He's not small. And that, whether it be Kyler Murray or any of these guys, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to wait to the last minute, and then the crowd, if it's a home game, then the crowd goes crazy, and then the officials feel compelled to throw a flag, and it's very NBA-ish to me. The flopping of the NBA, I just don't like it. And it really has nothing to do with whether people like Kansas City, because right now they're disliked outside of Missouri for the most part. Just people are just like, I'm sick of the Chiefs. That's what we do. We like them for a minute. We respect them for a minute. Then we don't like them. But the other side of it, where he said at the beginning of that, and this is where I am just as a sports fan in general, as a philosophy, and I've told you this before, which is the Texans did have opportunities. The Texans had a ton of opportunities to win that game. And so do I think that they lost that game because of it? I just told you part of it is they did get 10 points off those calls. But after those calls, could the Texans have played better defense? They could have. Were there more opportunities? There were. On average in a football game, there was about 60 to 70 offensive and defensive plays. So there's a lot of plays. And so when people come to me and say an official cost me or cost our team or cost the team a game, I look back and I said, I bet I could probably give you at least 5 turning points of a game, if not 10, where I would say if your team made a play there, you would have won the game. Now, do you mix into the stew what the Zebras do? Yeah. There were 2 of those plays of the number of plays, probably 10 in the Texans game that were gotta have it's for the Texans, and they didn't do it. So there's another 8 plays probably realistically in that game that the Texans could have made, any one of them, and it probably turns the game in their favor. They played well against Kansas City, but there were times where they just didn't. They missed throws and all those kind of things. So I don't generally, I'd probably say 90% of the time or even higher, blame officials, probably 99% of the time, to be honest with you. I just don't blame officials for games. But what Mahomes does is manipulating the game. And I'm a big believer in karma when it comes to sports. And at some point, somebody is just going to say, in a Buddy Ryan kind of a way, look it up, young demographic, in a Buddy Ryan kind of a way, early in the game, I don't care if you get a 15. I don't. So if Mahomes wants to dance along the sidelines or slide or something, and we're going to knock heads like Houston did to try to avoid him, then you know what? We're going to give him a shot. He's just going to take one. He's going to have to take one to realize that if you want to play around like that, this is big boy football. This is playoff football. This is to go to the Super Bowl. I'm going to smash you once early in the game. Like if I'm the Bills, that would not bother me. That would not bother me because I'm going to hit him and to intimidate him and to let him know that, look, and you just can't do it anymore. This isn't the Raiders and the Steelers, and it's not the 70s or the 80s or anything like that. They want to protect the leading men, and I get it. I've said it a million times. I don't want to see Carson Wentz in the game for Kansas City, and I think Mitch Trubisky for Buffalo. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. And I get it. They're the leading man of the movie, and they protect them at all costs, and I understand it. But when Mahomes is manipulating the situation, then something's going to happen. And if I'm Buffalo, I don't want to do it late. I don't want to do it at a stupid time. And maybe early in the game, you've got to set a tone to say, dude, if you're going to slide and you're going to screw around, Mahomes is 6'3", 225. And Mahomes, especially in the playoffs, like a lot of quarterbacks do, a lot of quarterbacks during the season, they're like, nah, enough's not on the line. I'm going to scoot out of bounds. Famously, Mahomes makes all sorts of third down runs, as we've seen so much. He did it 4th down in the Super Bowl, last year. He kills you with the run. And that's why Kyle Shanahan wanted to get a Trey Lance in there, because if you watch college football at all, watch the national championship game with Will Howard and Riley Leonard and those guys, a lot of times there's no accounting for the quarterback. And so it's like, damn, you have a quarterback who can run. And Mahomes may not run on 1st down or 2nd down, but on 3rd and 8, in a crucial situation, all of a sudden there's Mahomes skirting his way down the sidelines for 15 or 20 yards. And nobody wants to touch Mahomes, because if you touch him, and he goes flying and flopping out of bounds, then it's another 15, and you're like, the hell am I supposed to do? So defenders now slow up. Mahomes knows it. He dances around past the line of scrimmage, slides down. Defenders know it. Like they have to do something about it, because it's gotten to the point where it's like, protect the quarterback at all costs. I understand. But now you have these quarterbacks that are big dudes who can absorb a hit, and all of a sudden it's like, all of a sudden they're China dolls, they're porcelain. And it's like, no. And it's been like this for a long time. But when you start manipulating it, or NBA-izing it, which isn't a word or a term, but I just made it up. When you're making it about what it used to be a lot in the NBA, which is I can fool officials and they're going to side with me because I'm Patrick Mahomes, or I'm the quarterback, or I'm the leading man of the movie. You got to do something about it. And if I'm Buffalo up this weekend, you know what? I got to do it. And I'm going to do it early, and it's going to have an effect, because if Patrick Mahomes is running the ball on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 8, and skirting around the sidelines and sliding and laughing and dancing, I got to make sure early that he knows I ain't putting up with that, and 15 yards is worth it. It would depend. I mean, if they're going to, I don't know, they're going to kick a guy out of the game for hitting Patrick Mahomes late, maybe Kansas City's going to freak out, but it might be worth your time. That's all. Give me your thoughts. He's acknowledging it, but he's also saying that there were a lot of other plays. He's not wrong in either respect. You can be right and you can be wrong in the same conversation. So there was him, if you missed that. Give me your thoughts. on Mahomes. And I don't dislike Mahomes. I don't know how many times I'm going to say it, but I don't dislike him. And I'm not mad at him. And I do realize that he's a generational talent and he's really, really good. It's almost one of those things where you go, dude, you're so good. Why do you have to do that? It's almost LeBron-ish in that way. Like, look, LeBron, I don't love you off the court. I don't love the antics, and I don't love the king thing. I don't like any of that. But I will acknowledge the fact that you are a generational talent, one of the best players of all time. So and you're 260 pounds. So if a guy touches you on the shoulder, don't go flying. You're better than that. Don't go flying and flopping and crying and have that LeBron face. Don't do that. You're too good for that. Patrick Mahomes, you're too good to dance along the sidelines and flop out of bounds like a jackass. That's for a quarterback who's not very good and trying to gain an easy 15. I get what you're doing. I understand the game. You know the officials. You manipulate them. But you're better than that. Don't do that. I sound like a parent or something. You're too good for that, Johnny. I mean, look, he's manipulating him, and the NFL is to blame as well because they're allowing him to do it. So, anyway, what else do we got here? Give me your thoughts on that. Let's see. High skills. I don't dislike Malone either, or Mahomes, but his brother is a turd. His wife is a loogie. Oh, loogie. Man, that is if you're eating breakfast, a loogie. Yeah, Jackson Mahomes, I don't know what he's going to do now if they ban TikTok. Is TikTok banned or not? I can't decide. It just depends on the day. But yeah, his brother is a piece of garbage, man. I mean, I don't ever know what happened with that thing where he groped the restaurateur woman. I mean, my God, what a piece of garbage. Can you imagine if that was your brother? Like, you're Patrick Mahomes and you got all these things going for you, and your dad is a drunk, and your brother's like some TikTok jackass. And again, I'm not saying that if you're on TikTok and you're making money, good for you, man. It's America. But that's one thing. Honestly, there's a lot of things in life I don't understand. Some dude like Patrick Mahomes' brother Jackson going, and then he has a gazillion followers. I'm like, God, where do I get in line for that? Unbelievable. Good to see everybody today. Let me see if I not acknowledged anybody. Mario Martinez, good to see you, man. Good to see you, my friend. What else do we have? Anybody on that kind of thing? Andy Reid. Do you think Andy Reid is really saying sweep the leg? All I'm saying is, if I'm Buffalo, man, I don't want it to get out, and I don't want it to be a Buddy Ryan bounty situation. But if I want to go to the Super Bowl and I finally want to do away with and vanquish Patrick Mahomes, and they are very similar to the 49ers in that way, that they just haven't been able to get past them, I can't have Patrick Mahomes every 3rd and 3, and my defenders are afraid. My defenders are like, I can't touch him. I got to wait. I can't hit him. Sorry, man, especially early in the game. Not late, not in a critical situation. Behave yourself or have discipline and everything else. But I got to send a message early in the game that says, you know what? We're not putting up with that. We're just not doing it. And I'll get the officials early. A lot of times what happens in the league, and don't get me wrong, this stuff happens. You'll hold a receiver. You'll see what you can get away with in a game and how the officials are calling a certain game. And you might do something early because they're not going to call it all the time. And it might be a situation where you get the personal foul out of the way because it's going to happen at some point. And I'm not advocating hurting Patrick Mahomes. That's not the guy I'm being here. What I'm saying is that within the rules of the game, if you're going to do that, then you're going to invite yourself into that kind of a situation. That's how I see it. Now, speaking of, I haven't even gotten to Bonds yet. Oh, for the love of God. I got to play something for you. Man. I mean, that's a hard right turn. Okay, there's the Bonds thing. I can play it down there. Anything else on Patrick Mahomes? We had a long conversation about it. Enjoyed it. Josh, what'd you say there at the bottom? This was funny. Man, things just started to go crazy. I saw somebody say something about, well, there you go. Great call, sports fan. Siragusa did it again in the AFC Championship game. Yeah, after he body slammed Rich Gannon with about, what did Siragusa weigh at the time? At least 350. Then that was pretty much it for the Raiders' chances. There you go. Josh Allen. Josh Allen needs to do the crane kick on Mahomes, high 59. Josh Allen's just a totally different thing. I mean, Josh Allen will slide. I understand that. But Josh Allen is definitely much more fireball zone, going to run you over than anything else. So, yeah, I mean, 350, 375, whatever he was. Eagles did it to Brock Purdy. You're right. I mean, I don't know that necessarily Hassan Reddick was trying to do that. But as many people that I've talked to that played in the league, and I told you I used to do a show in Detroit with a former defensive lineman. So people who don't think that they're trying to hurt them, you would be incorrect. He told me many a times, used the term if the backup was better than the starter, then the backup would be playing. So especially in this league, which we talk about all the time, there aren't enough starting quarterbacks, let alone backup quarterbacks. And like I said, I'm not advocating for injury here. I'm not at all. I'm not saying you're trying to injure Patrick Mahomes, but if you think those defensive linemen aren't trying to get Patrick Mahomes out of the game so they can welcome Carson Wentz to the game, you're crazy. Because I've been told by many of guys that that's exactly what they're trying to do. Like I said, Gizmo, guys, people tried to hurt Steve Young. They tried to hurt all those guys. When Leonard Marshall got up from out of the ground and knocked Joe Montana to the moon, you don't think Leonard Marshall was gearing up to try to hurt Joe Montana and get him out of the game? He was. All right, that's the conversation about Patrick Mahomes. So that's where we are. It's a good time to recap episode 39. We got into the Kings and the Warriors, 123-117, third quarter, 8 turnovers, 19 points from DeMar DeRozan, and outscored 37-20. Good night, Irene. Balky and Saleh got into that. Pete Carroll is possibly a backup plan. We just played the Patrick Mahomes audio and got into that conversation about how the Bills may handle that. All right, let's get into this Bonds thing because I hesitate because we've heard this so many times, right? We've heard it so many times. Is Barry going to get in? How many conversations? Balco, PEDs, blah, blah, blah. But this is a new one. I promise you. I'm not doing this because there's so much stuff to talk about. We're an hour and a half into the show. And let me just make sure I don't have a guest down here because we got a couple on the line that we might be getting today. But I'm not doing this because we don't have anything to talk about. I'd love to play for you, speaking of fights, this hockey fight, which I'm going to do. There's random stuff we always do, and there's a caboose pistol that I've been sitting on for like 2 days. So and plus you guys can send me to different directions constantly by just talking about something. You know that. You know my ADD. So it's not like I have to talk about Barry Bonds again, but I wanted to play this for you, not to piss everybody off, because it's Thursday. We're getting near the end of the week. Thursday night's the new Friday night. Thursday nights, it's great going out on a Thursday night, and you can stumble through a Friday, and then, it's great. I mean, I love Thursdays. I love it. So I don't want to be in an angry mood or a bad mood, but I watched this yesterday on MLB Network, and I'm a big fan of Brian Kenny. We had him on all the time on KBR with Greg and I. And I love John Morosi. He's been on a ton of times. In fact, John Morosi is the kind of guy that will come on the show. He's a great guy, just one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. So I respect everybody. I think Joel Sherman is in this clip as well. Joel Sherman is the master of yes, I can confirm the report of, because somebody will break the news, and then Joel Sherman's the king of, yes, I can confirm the report that Blake Snell is going to the Dodgers. Anyway, he's a respected baseball guy. And so they start having a conversation about this group that's going to get together. And Barry Bonds might have a chance, and Robert Clemens and those who should be in the Hall of Fame might have a chance as early as 2026 to get into the Hall of Fame. And I ask you all the time that, does it matter that, do you like Hall of Fame talk? But this is kind of an interesting take on all this kind of stuff. But I want you to take a special interest to what Morosi says at the end, because I'm just like, this is why this is so screwed up. Because it's like, look, Barry gets in, Clemens gets in, even Jeff Kent here of the list that you're going to see here, but especially Clemens and Bonds, like, get them in, and then you can start having conversations about whatever else with these other guys. But it's an embarrassment to the sport that you're talking about other guys beyond Bonds and Clemens and putting them in ahead of these guys, and that this has all been talked out. It's like, what are you talking about? So anyway, you don't know, like, I'm sitting here telling you about something that you don't know. So let me do this, and then let's talk about it. But it's so screwed up. Here, just take a listen or watch.
Down from there where you have to get down, Jason, maximum 3 votes.
I know. That committee actually meets for the first time in 2 weeks. They won't come up with the final list until November, but wouldn't you like to be a fly on that wall? I would.
Right. But it's legit. You should be in that room. It's legitimately difficult.
How are they going to do it? Here's a question for you. Bonds and Clemens went nowhere last time. It was a resounding rejection of those guys and the whole PED era. But what if Bonds and Clemens are not even on the ballot next time?
Yeah.
You're telling me that won't be a huge headline?
Yeah, that's plausible. it's understandable, and yet, yeah, it would create this, oh, they're blackballing me again, right? And even though they've had a shot on the Veterans Committee already. If you were on the screening committee, would you put Bonds and Clemens on there?
I voted for Bonds and Clemens every year. They were on the ballot, so I would do it. But I would just say an overarching thing about the 14 names you just showed. If you believe in a bigger Hall of Fame, I think you should go 14 for 14 there.
You could.
Like,
you could do
those
it.
are Hall of Famers.
You could do it. Yeah.
Like, I don't
crazy.
mean they're in here, but like Scott Rowland and Todd Helton got in. I don't know that they stand out against those 14 guys. Like, I think that's the level of player they are. And if you think that where that is, the 1.5%, 2%, whatever that is, belong in this hall, I think everyone on that list belongs on the hall. The question is your borderline. And so therefore, I do think it's a bloodbath to decide who even gets on the ballot, because I can make a case that they're all very similar.
And I would say again, Bonds and Clemens, you have to explain away things. I know you vote for them, but you have to explain away things, whereas Murphy and Mattingly, you just feel good about it. So why can't we just feel good about it?
So, BK, to your point, and with Joel, I voted every year I had a ballot for both Bonds and Clemens, but I would take the different approach with this ballot. I would say we already saw on the Contemporary Era Committee that there was not support for them. So they should be put aside for this time, and let's look at some new candidates who have not had, in my view, their fair hearing. Certainly, Lou Whitaker, Lofton, Williams, all of whom are one and done. None of them should have been one and done. It's now time to take up those cases and more thoroughly vet out their credentials for this great hall and not relitigate two players in the case of Bonds and Clemens who were evaluated ad nauseum by our group. And by the way, a majority of us, a majority of the writers, voted for Bonds and voted for Clemens, but they did not reach 75%. They had plenty, in my view, of a fair hearing from our electorate and our group.
First of all, this is an old sports radio conversation that if you had a slow day, especially in the Bay Area, you could bring up Barry Bonds and have that discussion. And it doesn't matter how many times you've talked about it. The Barry Bonds discussion is always interesting. But their rationale among four very respected and very good baseball minds, in Jason Stark right there, Brian Kenny, who I'm a big fan of, Joel Sherman, and John Morosi, who at the end, I felt like I was watching Happy, no, not Happy Gilmore. What was the other one? We are all dumber for having heard what you just said. It was like, what? We've already litigated Bonds and Clemens to such a level. Let's set them aside. What? That's what this is. These committees, no matter the Hall of Fame, these committees are put in place to right wrongs, to put people in the Hall of Fame who were overlooked somehow. Look, I understand if you have the philosophy, and this is where it all emanates from. If you have the philosophy that you do not want to reward cheaters or that cheating and so you're automatically disqualified, that's fine. But understand through the history of time in every single sport, not everybody gets caught. It's not a 2-hour movie where it's like, okay, this person murders somebody and then 2 hours later they come through in the movie and then they get caught. A lot of people get away with stuff. So whether it's some sort of an advantage in every single sport, it's always happened. Somebody's got a cream and a clear and a greenie and an upper and a downer and a this and a that and something that makes them perform better. It's a fact. And it's 100% a fact that there are people in the Hall of Fame that used something, that used a drug. Now, and I said this yesterday, whether it was David Ortiz, absolutely who did, but he's likable. But Alex Rodriguez used, but he's not likable. Like, we're getting to the point in the media where, and I've talked to many media members about this who will never say this publicly, they just don't like certain guys. It's human nature. It's like Draymond Green in a game saying, I don't get a fair shake. Hey, bro, you earned that not fair shake. You did this. These are human beings that you're dealing with, and you're a jackass. And they're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and nor should they. But they're taking things that are completely irrelevant. Barry Bonds was an ass. He was. Still is. Never going to apologize, never going to go on the air and be this likable David Ortiz guy. And Alex Rodriguez is trying, but it's not working, and on down the line, and it happens in all the sports. We like that guy. He's getting in. Because these are writers, these are guys who are around the game, and these are people who are around the game, and they're biased. And so they decide Barry Bonds was a jerk to me, I'll show him. And when he's on his deathbed, we'll put him in. Or Roger Clemens, who was a jerk. When he's on his deathbed, we'll put him in. Like, that's the kind of things that they're going to do. But to have really smart baseball people show the list that they just showed and say, let's feel good about putting Dale Murphy in. Let's feel good about putting Don Mattingly in. It's not about feeling good. It's about putting the best players in. And this sport specifically can never move on until Clemens and Bonds are in. So just put them in. There are guys, Mike Piazza is in. There are racists like Ty Cobb in. There are bad people all through this thing. I said this yesterday. How could you have O.J. Simpson in the Hall of Fame, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? He's a murderer, man. You got to kick him out. Like it's not the hall of really nice guys. It's not. And it's not the hall of very good. When this thing was initially, and everybody's got, it's cool. This is why this debate will always go on. And maybe I don't want him in because then we can always talk about it, but I do. And I know I'm in the Bay Area, and a lot of people that are listening outside of the Bay Area are like, he's a cheater. I get it, man. And the minute you make that decision, maybe you shouldn't be eligible. I get it. But baseball embraced it. Baseball made money off of it. Baseball has players that were in that era that are in, but they're nicer guys. I'm not calling certain guys out, but in covering the game during that time, a lot of guys were using, and we all knew it. And Bud Selig, who was one of the ringleaders of it, is in. What? Just put Barry in. It's embarrassing that he's not in. Put Roger Clemens in. It's embarrassing that he's not in. And even before these guys did what they did, they were great enough to get into the Hall of Fame. It's that simple. And we're not the morality police here. That's just what it is. And these old guys who say we're just not going to let him in. I'd like to go back with everybody and with a fine-tooth comb go over everybody's career. Did you not get any advantage? Did you not do this? Did you not do that? Did you not cork your bat? Did you not? It's so ridiculous to this point. And I understand and certainly respect those who say a cheater shouldn't get in. If that's your criterion, I do get it. I do understand that. But then when you start looking at the names, and by the way, Jeff Kent's on that. Jeff Kent should be in, but Jeff Kent was an ass. He has better numbers than Ryan Sandberg, who flew into the Hall of Fame, but Ryan Sandberg was a really nice guy. And Jeff Kent's an ass. Like there is a major element to this of how nice you are to these writers who hold the key to the Hall of Fame. And it is silly. It's just ridiculous. If Barry was a nicer guy, if Clemens was a nicer guy, if Kent was a nicer guy, they honestly would all be in. They would all be in. And Barry was defiant. There's no question. And a lot of these guys were. And even a guy like Andy Pettitte, who should be in, who was one of the best post-game pitchers of all time, he admitted it. He tried the other way. Like, yeah, I did it. And then he's not in. A lot of guys did it. They just didn't get caught. And we all think that everybody has to get caught like a movie. You committed a murder, you're going to get caught. Lots of people get away with a lot of stuff. But I guess my bottom line to the whole thing, without ranting and raving too much, is they use names like Scott Rowland, Todd Helton. Is it being in Colorado like being on the juice anyway? I mean, Larry Walker gets in, those kind of guys. What would Todd Helton have been without the help of thin air? What would Larry Walker have been without the help of thin air? I just don't know. That's a major advantage. If you think that Barry Bonds got an extra 25 or 30 feet or 50 feet, or basically what, if you don't know, the advantage to PEDs is you'll feel better longer. So how you go through the dog days of summer? When you're using those things, you feel better. You bounce back faster. It's not so much that you're an Adonis and a god and you can hit it 100 feet more. It's that you feel better for longer. That's what it was. So yeah, it's a massive advantage, but so is hitting the ball in Colorado, and Todd Helton's in. Like, do you think Hall of Fame Todd Helton? Do you think Hall of Fame Scott Rowland? Do you think, I think Mattingly should be in, and I don't want to disparage these other guys. Mattingly should be in. Dale Murphy should be in. But then I start hearing names like Kenny Lofton. Okay, was Kenny Lofton in any way, shape, or form, juice or not, better than Barry Bonds in the same conversation? No. And I like Kenny Lofton. He was a teammate of Tom Tolbert's at Arizona. He was a hell of a leadoff hitter for those Indians teams. He's great. I don't want to disparage others to elevate a Barry Bonds or a Roger Clemens, but it's so stupid. And this is always going to be a conversation. So if I'm part of baseball, I'm Rob Manfred. I don't want to be Rob Manfred, but I'm Rob Manfred just for a second. And I think to myself, the sport's never going to be able to fully move on unless we just put Bonds and Clemens in. We have an opportunity here to put them in. Just put them in. And then we can stop the debate, the constant discussion about it. Like, these guys in their prime, and not even in their prime, even before the juice, had all this. So let's just put them in. It's over. And I agree with you, man. Lofton was a great leadoff hitter. I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but I laugh. I look at Craig Biggio or something like that. Really, really very good. But Hall of Fame? Anyway, it sounds like with those guys, and they're in no. And again, those are 4 great guys who know baseball, know the history. But at the end, when John Morosi, who I have a ton of respect for, love, have probably had on my radio show 50 times, says, let's just table that because we've had enough conversations about Bonds and Clemens. What? Like that's the number one issue. It's like, when you're younger and you have a procrastination problem, I probably still do as an adult, and you say, let's just do that later. That's too hard. Like we could do these 10 things and then that one big thing I have to do, I just don't want to deal with it, man. It's a giant pain in the ass. I don't want to do that. So let's put that aside for later. Just do it now. Like you get older and you go, let's just get that out of the way because it's always going to be on my mind and it's always going to bother me and I'm not going to be able to sleep. I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night and stare at the ceiling because that one thing. So just do that one thing. Just get it out of the way. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa. And now baseball can move on. Like you have this group of people and it's like you're sitting there saying, you know what? Scott Rowland, Kenny Law, like these guys, I mean, Rowland's already in, so that's a bad example, but any of those names that they had on the board, it's like, come on, man. Like you're looking at these 2 guys going, really? And again, I'm not going to put Jeff Kent in that group, but Jeff Kent's a Hall of Famer. But he was surly and he was a jackass and he lied about a motorcycle accident and people didn't like him and he went on, Survivor, which is Survivor on season like 49, for the love of God. I never watched Survivor. I'm not a hater on it. I just never got into it. And it's like, I saw the other day, like there was another ad for it. Is Jeff Probst still the, whatever his name is he the host of it? Like he's been doing this for 50 years. Love of God, or not 50 years. That's wrong. But I mean, 50 seasons. Love of God, man. Anyway. All right. Give me your thoughts. Enjoy the game more. Exactly. Jeff Kent. Why are you guys hating like he's hating on KMVR? There you go. I mean, let me go to this too. And thanks, Skills Report. Pete Rose. I mean, Pete Rose is dead. Put him in. I mean, has he not served enough time? For the love of God, what does he need? A presidential pardon? Like everybody gets it. You get a presidential pardon. You get a presidential pardon. But Pete Rose, even in death, Pete Rose can't get into the Hall of Fame. Didn't he have to go long enough? Did I call JJ Rader? Did I call you out? I don't think I did. Maybe I did. Yeah, there you go. Pudge, same thing. Pudge Rodriguez, I covered him with the Tigers. I mean, great guy. He juiced. He was like $1.75. Then he was like gigantic. And then he went back down to like $1.75. Like, nah, one of the greatest catches of all time. Like, there's guys who juiced. Everyone knows it. Everyone. David Ortiz did. Mike Piazza did. Pudge Rodriguez did. Nope. Sorry. Can't be Bonds. Can't be the ringleader of it. Can't put that guy in. All right. It's so stupid. Or like Pete Rose in death. Like, look at all these guys. Joe Biden leaves. No politics on the show, I know. But Joe Biden leaves office. These guys get pardoned. Trump comes in. A bunch of guys get pardoned. I don't have an opinion on it. I'm just simply saying that so the president can pardon all these people, but Pete Rose dies and he still can't get into the Hall of Fame. Like, did he not? Look, I'm not a huge Pete Rose guy. Again, a guy who was a jackass and denied and finally said, okay, I did it. We all knew you did it. And if he had been a really nice guy and come on the air and been all, nice and cuddly and all those kind of things, maybe Pete gets in, but it's like Pete was a jerk. Pete wouldn't admit it. It's like, oh, yeah, he had the most hits of all time, but yeah, let's not put him in. And while baseball, and I'm sorry I'm going on this rant for so long, but baseball knew what Barry was doing and Sosa was doing and McGuire was doing and all these kind of things. And they let it go and they cashed the checks and ratings were never higher. But man, what was going on behind? I can't believe it. They were injecting what? All right, I'm done. That's 4 baseball minds that are smart too. And they're going, let's just table it. Take it head on, man. Be an adult. Get it over with. All right, this will put you in a better mood. I want to play this, even though I really don't have. There is no context to play what I'm going to play, but I just thought you would enjoy it. I thought you would enjoy this. All right. Let's see what else. Yeah, Griffey didn't. Like, I don't know that. That's the whole thing is like, look, I love Ken Griffey, the prettiest left-handed swing maybe of all time. And yet, can you 100% say he didn't? Not here to say he did, but I'm just saying, like, everybody loves the kid. He's got his hat on backwards. What a great catch in center field. You know, if I was in Seattle, people would be like, oh my God, what are you saying? Are you insane? Like, everybody was up for suspicion in those days. I don't know. Maybe he didn't, but I can't 100% say he didn't. I mean, there are people that even beyond the obvious guys who were in, there are people who we just have no idea that we're on it where we go, really? So it's just ridiculous to say, well, those are the only two. Oh, we got those guys. Thank goodness we did. We didn't let those two guys in because nobody else juiced. Nobody else is a jackass. Nobody else is a jerk. Nobody else is a racist. Like, okay. Right. Right. It's so weird, isn't it? Like, you think when you're a young person that the adults have it right and they're smart and they do things the correct way. And then you look at something like this and you go, four really good baseball minds are really debating amongst the group that they showed who are all, come on, Joel Sherman, 14 from 14. I'm not in favor of a bigger Hall of Fame. So I right there, I could be 100% wrong and you can disagree with me. It's not a participation trophy. That's not what the Hall of Fame is. It's the Hall of Fame. Not very good. Not kind of good. Not nice guy and good. Not nice guy and great. The greatest of all time. All right. Done. I swear I'm done this time. Stop baiting me back into it. All right. Let's have a palate cleanser, shall we? I watch some hockey. I like Celebrini. I'm a big Sharks fan. I'll go down and see the Sharks. I don't talk about it a ton, even though I could in this forum, because I don't know how many people are fans. So if I'm underestimating hockey talk, then you let me know. But last night there was a fight between Toronto and Columbus. And I know, like, the NBA doesn't want to see fights. And we've had this is an old sports radio conversation of whether you like to see hockey fights or not. But it's like, I don't know why this one struck me last night, but I'm watching highlights of this and I'm like, God, what if you could do this in every sport? Like, what if in the NFL you just said to hell with it? You took your helmets off and you just went at it for a minute and the officials just stood around. What if in the NBA, like they just decided, all right, man, we're going at it and you're going to do it. But I mean, in hockey, I know you know this, but I'm just going to play this. Like, you throw off the gloves and you're on ice. And like, you could take the other guy's jersey, put it over his head. You could just, they just, after a while, they just go, okay, you've tired each other out. We're done. But they let basically two goons fight it out for a minute. Everybody kind of gets into it, and then that's it. And it's over, and everybody moves on. You go to the penalty box, you go to the sin bin for a minute and 5, whatever, and then you carry on. So I don't know why this struck me, but I wish every sport would do this. Am I wrong?
And what a tilt this is! Feel they're ready for someone to jump in now. This is long. They've had enough. Now, you know, there's the instincts.
Just how wild is that, man? They just are like, the officials are standing around, the crowd's going a little wild. Both benches are like hitting their sticks on the ice, and they let them fight for a minute. And then after they kind of tire each other out, and the play-by-play guy knows, or, you know, he's watching that thing and he's going, yeah, they're probably tiring each other out. They're probably done. And then a minute later, seconds later, the official jumps in. Those guys go into the box. They can come back. Nobody's getting fined. Nobody's getting kicked out for a number of games. It's just like, it's time. And it's not going to be like, you know, it's not going to be, you know, two young, great players, goal scorers. You know, it's going to be two guys who are they're the meat. They're the goons. That's what guys are going to do. So they let him do that for a minute. The crowd gets jacked up a little bit. People get excited. And then there's a whole conversation. Do you like fights? Do you like hockey fights? But as I'm watching that, I'm thinking to myself, like a hard slide into second base and they square off in baseball or in football. It's like, okay, throw your helmet off, throw your, you know, whatever. You can't use a helmet as a weapon. You guys can duke it out for a minute. We'll break it up here in a second. Like, I mean, those are two big dudes on ice. Like, like I said, they can grab each other's sweaters and put it over their heads. They can, you know, a few punches thrown here and there, and then everybody's no worse for the wear. Maybe there's a little blood, maybe there's a black eye, whatever there is, and then they just let them go. And it's not like those guys aren't getting kicked out of multiple games. Those guys will go to the box for 5, and then it's like, all right, we're cool, no big deal. I protected my guy, you protected your guy. Everybody understands what's going on, and then that's it. And in hockey, they let it go. Any other sport, it's like, that's 10 games. You fought. That's Rudy T and Kermit Washington. That's, whatever. Anyway, I don't know. I would love to see that. Like too hard of a slide to second base, and all of a sudden the shortstop jumps out, and they clear the field for a second there. Everybody kind of grabs a little popcorn, sits down, takes a break, grabs some water. A couple of guys, 2 minutes of punches, and you're done. Respect. I don't know why that talk. I mean, it's not like the first hockey fight I've ever seen, but I was just like, okay, it's kind of interesting. What if they allowed that in other sports? That's a good point. Draymond Green kind of does that. I mean, wouldn't Draymond be a much nicer person if he and wouldn't squawk at the officials nearly as much if they just let him fight? Like back in the day, they would do that. Maurice Lucas would fight somebody or whatever, and they just, Daryl Dawkins and Maurice Lucas would fight, and then I'd be like, all right, break it up. Maybe that's what they need. Maybe it's just like Draymond against some other guy like last night who would have fought for the Kings. I mean, you get not maybe Sabonis, I guess, but Sabonis is a really good player. Trey Lyles. I mean, I don't know, somebody like that where it's like, all right, let's just have a couple of things. Are you making fun of me? You said, can we talk about the Hall of Fame again? That's a shot at me, isn't it, DM? Yeah, it probably is. Because you're like, come on, bro. You're just, you're too much. Going too hard. Yeah, the little Happy Gilmore there. Little Happy Gilmore. We should play it. I should have had that queued up. I should have had the Bob Barker and Happy Gilmore queued up. That was incredible. The price is wrong, bitch. That was solid. All right. Have I ranted long enough? Have I raved long enough? Let me do one. Should I save this or do you want to do a caboose pistol? Let me pull this up and remember if this was as good as I thought, because it's like 3 days old. And usually if something's 3 days old, I would have got to it by now if it was really that good. And then where is it? I don't even know. Maybe I took it off. Maybe I took it off the board. Oh, here it is right here. From the New York Post, where I get a lot of this stuff. Surgeon and father-in-law of 3 performs vasectomy on himself as a gift for his wife. I am really brave. No, you're really stupid. Like, first of all, at this point in my life, I should have had this done a long time ago, but I did not. But even if you could do this on yourself, would you do that on yourself? I mean, he's probably got a really good doctor friend. I'm sure he has a group of friends that can do vasectomies. I don't know. That's a little much for me. Now, maybe you're just that good of a doctor, but I would not want to do that. That just sounds, I mean, if you're eating your breakfast right now, that probably hurts. I don't know what he's doing on the right side there, but I mean, again, I'll talk to our female audience here, which is vast and growing. Would that impress you that if you had a doctor husband that he said, watch me, I'm going to perform a vasectomy on myself, quote unquote, I am really brave. I don't know. I don't think that's impressive. I think that if that was, like cocktail talk, that if we were talking and you were a surgeon and you said, do you know that I performed a vasectomy on myself? I'd be like, anyway, how's that Johnson account going, Bob? Like, I wouldn't want to talk about that. And if I was a woman, I don't know. It's hard for me sometimes to understand what is impressive for a woman. I'm not really good at it, but I don't know. Would that do something for you that your doctor surgeon husband could perform a vasectomy on himself? I am really brave. I don't know. I would call it dumb. I would think you could get it done by somebody else in a fashion, but maybe you could do that. Maybe that is impressive. It's like, people who give themselves their own haircuts or something. That's probably not a good comparison. Anyway, there's a thought. There's your sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol I've been holding for a couple of days. I would like to give you. I'm not only a doctor, but a patient. Exactly. Is today National Pie Day? Or did I miss that? Am I going to have to look that up? Is that true? True story? Thanks, Gizmo. I'll have to check that. Is that pizza day? Is that pie as in like dessert kind of pie? Pie gets a bad rap because everybody likes cake, and then you get a pie like a key lime. Like in the summertime, a good key lime, go for it. A little lemon meringue. I'm not a huge chocolate guy. If it is pie day, not a huge chocolate guy. I do love cheesecake, by the way. Like Cheesecake Factory, I'm not a huge fan of, but I would get like all their different kind of cheesecakes. Big cheesecake guy. Love cheesecake. Yeah, especially the different kind of varieties. That would be a pretty amazing thing. Look at how we just transitioned from a guy who gave himself his own vasectomy to someone capitalizing on my ADD by talking about Pie Day. I don't even know if it's Pie Day. It's a new guy. Hi, 707. You're one of the reasons I'm majoring in journalism at Sac State. Thank you. Oh, boy. as Charles Barkley once said, I am not a role model. But if you would like to reach out to me, I have been doing this for about 27 years and have done I've done about everything you could possibly do, from TV to writing to, if you can imagine this, I actually ran radio stations, worked for ESPN. I've worked for a number of different places. People are probably sick of me telling people all about that. So if you are, and thank you, by the way, for the contribution, my friend, always appreciated. 707. I'm him 707 with the contribution. If you'd like to reach out, if you'd like to hit me up, if you'd like to DM me on any of my social medias, I do have as we know, a 21-year-old son doing the same thing, and I am more than welcome to pay it forward, because a lot of people in this business, that's just what we do. There's a lot of businesses like, bro, I'm not giving you any advice. You're not stealing my job. That's not how I look at it. I look at it as paying it forward. A lot of people helped me along the way and gave me opportunities that I was in no way qualified for, but you just learn on the job. I tell my son, whatever they ask you to do, you say you can do it. And that's my best advice to you, by the way. Never say no. Learn as many different things as you can so you can get your foot in the door, because the most difficult thing is to get your foot in the door. And then after that, it's all up to you. You just get that one opportunity and you run and you work your butt off, work harder than anybody else, and you'll have a shot in this business. Don't be a talk show host. Be a play-by-play guy, be a writer, be a TV guy, whatever. Be a hot take artist, whatever. But I'm him 707. First of all, thank you for the contribution to the show. But if you want to reach out to me and hit me up, DM me, whatever the case may be, I will be more than happy to provide you any type of guidance is really a bad word for me, but any kind of guidance that I could possibly provide. I hesitated there because I'm like, does anyone want my guidance? Probably not. But I do this business fairly well. So let me know. I will be more than happy to help you. And again, thank you, I'm him 707, for the contribution. Hope that was worth $5. Probably, give you a little bit of advice for a youngin'. Thank you. Nathan is the best. Super sticker. Thank you very much for the contributions to the show. You can all contribute if you would like. No pressure, but it will automatically get your things on the board. Like I said, I'm him 707. Thank you very much. Jeff is a new member. And as I said, we are doing exclusives right now. Like when the show is over, we will do the story of the day, which I will get up there, and that will be exclusive to members. And then it will ultimately become public. Thank you, Danny Golden TV, for being a new YouTube member as well. I want to make sure that we acknowledge everybody who does that. But I love everybody equally. I don't have a favorite child. Everybody is awesome, but I do certainly want to acknowledge the people that are contributing to the show. So thank you very much. Have we done enough damage? 2 hours and 2 minutes on this whole thing? Did I get to everything? The Warriors, the second half. Draymond, sorry but not sorry. Bulky Saleh. I still believe that's going to be Saleh. Pete Carroll as a backup plan. Mahomes audio. He realizes what he's doing. Bonds in 26. Doesn't sound like it from four very smart baseball people, but I still don't get it. Hockey fight to do the palate cleanser. Random stuff we do throughout the show. And I gave you a caboose pistol on a guy who did his own vasectomy. I'm looking at my video to make sure I played everything for you today, and I did. There's a piece of video for Tom Brady, but we'll hold that to tomorrow. Doesn't really have a reference point today, so we will change that. Anything else before we get out of here? Do remember, as you know, I'll give you the spiel and I'll give you the speech. X, Instagram are live there every single day. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Please tell all your friends and enemies about the show. And please subscribe. John Lund Unleashed Pod on YouTube. John Lund Unleashed Pod. Pretty pleased for that. The website is up and running. We update it every single day. So podcast, archives of podcast shows, all those kind of things. And also, I will do as I said, the story of the day. What would you want to be the story of the day today? There's a lot of good stuff. Draymond, sorry. We've done a lot of 49ers over the last 2 days, so I don't know if I'm going to do that. Bonds, I guess I ranted a long time. I could do Bonds as the story of the day. I think that's kind of interesting. Anyway, I'll decide the story of the day. It could be something totally off the board. I'll go off the board money. And it could be something that I find out. We'll put shorts out, all those kind of things. So johnlundunleashed.com is the place to go for all of those things. Let me pop up one more question here. Do you have a good relationship with the guys over at 95.7? Absolutely. The way I look at it is this is kind of a profession where everybody, and I've said this before, is walking on this circus high wire. And at any point, you could get knocked off of it. I'm not bitter about losing the gig at KNBR because I did this in a lot of different fun markets for 27 years, never really had a real job. And well, it's hard work, it's fun work. And so, yeah, I did it for 27 years and on the radio and loved it and covered a lot of cool events. And absolutely. So the respect that I have for people that will do this, because it leads a lot of times to eating a lot of macaroni and cheese and top ramen and everything like that at the beginning. And then if you make it, awesome. I had a lot of friends who were really good at this, but just couldn't wait long enough and couldn't make as little money as they were making at the beginning. So anybody who is going to be in this forum and put themselves onto a public forum, which in today's day and age where there's so much social media and hate and all those kind of things. So that's what you're doing when you get on the stage every single day. You open yourself up to people saying you suck and you're a jerk and you don't know what you're talking about and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, I respect everybody who does it. There are favorites and least favorites amongst all that, but whether it be 95.7, KNBR, and people across guys, women across the country, massive amount of respect. So yeah, I have been throughout my career. One of my goals was to never burn a bridge. And while that is very difficult to do and near impossible, I would say that probably in 95% of cases, I've been able to do that. I have a good relationship with everybody. And I try to do that as a general rule, because you never know. I'll tell you this for the young guy who was asking that's going into this business. Don't burn bridges, because all of a sudden you turn around, it's like, damn, that guy that I hated on and dissed, he's the boss where I want to get hired. Like, that's just a general rule. That's not a sports rule. That's just general. You know what I mean? Like, I guarantee you, every business is so small, you think it's big, and you're like, I'll never see that guy again. All of a sudden, it's like you want a gig, and it's like, damn it, that guy. I'm not going to get that gig because you got to fight with that guy. So just, be the bigger man. Kind of like we talked about Draymond Green. Everything comes in the circle. Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. They should have made up. They didn't. Now they're screwed. Anyway, that's just my thought on everything. All right. What else, man? Yeah, Joy, I agree with you. We try to do this, and I keep saying I'm going to leave, and I don't. That's what I love about this chat. No trolls. Yeah, I just, I think there should be a safe zone for everybody. I know this is going to sound corny, but there's so much, like, people won't value somebody else's opinion. We live in this world where, there's a lot of hate and all these kind of things and trolls and everything. And look, people are going to pop in here and do that, and that's fine. But the reality of it is that, I try to have fun because we're talking about sports, man. We're not talking about the Middle East, and we're not talking about politics, and we're not talking about, things that are life-changing. Now, look, do we have a lot of passion for what we care about? You care about the Niners and the Warriors and just all of sports, which I try to not just be such a small scope of just the Bay Area. I try to kind of widen the lens a little bit, which is a term I'm fond of, so that we can talk about a lot of things. Because I know that as a sports fan, you like a lot of different things. So I try to bring a lot to the table every day and try to prepare that way and bring you what's important every single day. But it's not so important that it's more important than your family or your health or, and I've had health scares and everything. And you just, you come in here every day, and I want you all to feel welcome and have a good time and be able to smile and laugh and think. And we try to do all those different things every day. And I don't want to rant and rave and get pissy, because that's not who I am. So that's just kind of what we do. No Staley talk. Stop the Staley talk and we're fine. Yeah, I get you, man. I hear you. So anyway, I'm glad that people are acknowledging that. And hopefully we don't have that here as we expand. You never know. But I'm not going to let those people hang around, because like I said, I think that everybody, I didn't mean to pop that up. I think that everybody deserves a voice. And if you, like I said, and I want to make sure that we reiterate as we grow every single day, you don't have to agree with me. I'm just kind of sitting here talking, and hopefully we're connecting together, and you can agree with some, and you don't have to agree with all. And you can completely disagree with all that kind of stuff. Like, it's totally cool. We don't have to sit here and be like, he's a jackass, but I'm not going to say it. That's fine, man. Believe me, I just come up with this stuff, and sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to say. And then all of a sudden it's like, did he just say that? So it's cool, man. You don't have to agree. You don't have to, whatever. Just kind of a safe zone. We have a lot of fun every day. That's what the point is. All right. Get off the soapbox. I will. All right. I think that'll do it for today. Had a tremendous day. We had a lot of fun today. Friday edition of the show. Like I said, we thought a couple of people would pop in for guest fronts today, but we did not see that as I'm looking backstage. No one, I'm not leaving someone backstage. We will make sure that we get a couple of people tomorrow. I will reiterate those kind of things. It's a Friday. So if you have a poll that you have in mind, absolutely, positively, please pass that along to me, and any other things that we didn't get to that you'd love to talk about, hit me up right here in the chat line after the show. Instagram and X we're live on. And again, everything is available at johnlundunleashed.com. So make sure that you're liking, your following, your having your alerts on, and all those kind of things. You know all that. We don't need to go over it again. Have a tremendous Thursday. I look forward to talking to you on Friday. And do you be on the lookout today for the story of the game and other things that we'll throw out. Made it fun today. Really appreciate everybody. Have a tremendous Thursday. We will talk to you on Friday. That's it. That's it. That's it.
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!